It is finally time. I have been waiting so long. Can you imagine?
Me too.
On launch day, dude, when I'm done, like 100% story completion, when everyone's just jumping into this video game.
Yeah.
And now I can finally, Huber and I have talked a little bit, but these are the only two allies right here that have got 100% completion on Red Dead Redemption 2. It is finally time to sit down and talk about the story, but I want to warn everybody, you got your typical spoiler warning, but I also want to say, even if you did get 100% completion, there's still stuff going on. There's still stuff you can do in that game, and I will be talking about it. I'll be talking about my experience, so we might even spoil that stuff too. So this is a double spoiler warning. If you've only done 100% completion, we might mention a couple things that are still waiting for you to discover and explore in that world. Final warning, Red Dead Redemption 2 spoilers start right now.
Spoiler mode, final warning, spoiler mode, activated.
Oh boy, here we go. Now, when I host a spoiler mode, I like to get right into it.
Yes.
You know, there's no build. I want to get right into that ending. I guess my first question is, for both of you, did you know that Arthur was going to die? Did you know Arthur wasn't going to make it out of this?
100% he was going to die. I knew it was going to end exactly him dying, then you play as John for the last remainder of the game.
I thought maybe he could ride off into the sunset. 95% chance he was going to die. I will tell you, though, I've seen Tombstone 300 times, so I swear to you, Jones, the first time he coughed, I was like, Doc Holliday.
Yeah.
TB. It's going down. Straight up.
And the TB was I had to ask Rockstar PR. I was like, what did I do? And they're like, oh no, that's part of the story. That just happens.
I know. I thought too that maybe you, because he mentions beating someone up for the money. He blames it basically on one of the crimes he did in his journal. He's like, oh, I got this TB probably because I, took money from so and so.
Got worked up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was wondering if maybe you could.
I wonder if it was Downs, because we'll get into that.
I want to talk
about that because
Downs.
he was sick and then eventually died, and that was one of the big regrets that he carried. And so
it was Downs.
Probably the storytelling way of he has his actual regrets, and then this illness is also acting as this thing that he can't get rid of that's inside of him.
Yeah.
I thought. And obviously, I don't want people to spoil stuff from social media, but I remember going through that and being like, wow, I expected a big backlash against him being sick. Because what a weird thing for a protagonist to do. It actually affects your stamina, affects how much you gain from when you eat things. And I was like, ooh, I could see people being pissed, especially late game. They're like, this is when I should be more powerful. This is when I should be a god in this game.
I just figured it's such a easy way. I saw through it in a way where I was like, okay, this is an easy way now where you can have him peacefully dying from the sickness instead of,
Sure.
going out.
It was an easy way to ease you into hey, he's going to die, but we're going to take it real slow with him dying so it doesn't feel like rushed or out of nowhere.
But it's kind of part of, the game is called Redemption. This is and also too, if you haven't played Red Dead Redemption 1, we're going to spoil the hell out of that game too. We have to. It's just it leads right into it. But you have these two characters that both die in these stories, that both are coming to terms with their mortality and can kind of see the end of the tunnel coming. With John, it's the law, and with this, it's this illness that's catching up to him. And so while it is a bit contrived, and I can say, I was kind of sad at the end because I'm rushing this thing. I'm trying to meet Embargo. I'm just exhausted. I'll be 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's coughing. I'm like, oh no, it's just all falling apart. It was an interesting emotional thing that kind of, I felt sick, and it was interesting that they don't introduce it right away. So I think you contract it. He really starts to feel symptoms when you're away. And then you finally get back to this area, and I think it was one cutscene he was in. And I'm like, he looks terrible.
His eyes,
why?
His eyes were red, bloodshot,
really purple.
And I was like, oh, I look sick, dude.
Yeah.
So I could kind of sense it beforehand. I'm like, am I not eating enough, or what's going on?
Because in the menu too, they say disease is really hard to cure.
Yeah.
So I assume they're referring to online. Probably online, you can get a disease maybe, and maybe you can cure it.
Whoa.
Because of the way that was worded, I was like, oh, maybe there's hope. Maybe there's hope that I'll cure the sickness. Maybe that was going to tie into the morality system. If you're
that's
good
another
enough.
thing. Yeah, I wonder if players got obsessed with trying to cure him somehow and just didn't see a way to do that. So it was an interesting gamble, I thought, on Rockstar's part. Yeah. But we get into the end. He doesn't make it. I know you went to save John. What did you do?
Oh, hell yeah,
at
I
the
went to
ending?
save John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go back and replay it, or you said you saw a video or something that said what happens?
Well, because I wanted to see the choices, because as soon as I finished, I was like, okay, can you save Arthur?
Yeah.
Can you save him?
Mm-hmm.
What the hell did I do wrong? And then I looked at the endings and it was like, no, it really mostly comes down to, do you go back for the money or do you go to save John? And then if you go for the money, Micah takes you out.
Mm-hmm.
So
I wonder, does that affect the money that John gets in the end? Because you have a nice little payday as John. Like, you got a nice little nest egg to spend at the end of that game, or at least I did. And I'm wondering if that affects that somehow. That's kind of his selfishness
know.
that'll then, have a consequence for John. But yeah, apologies. We were all nice guys. What would Huber said he was about 50-yard line for
Yeah.
For
Oh,
morality.
I
went straight good boy.
Yeah, me
until I
too.
hit the meter. Then I went bad.
to offset
then I
it.
started going nuts.
yeah, I went 50 yard line.
The only bad stuff is I'm like in the end game as John, and I want to get some of those challenges. And like, not only did I have to be bad to get like the bandit challenges, but a lot of that stuff, they're like attack enemies. I'm like, I don't really have any more enemies. There's some like gang camps I can go to.
Yeah.
But I went into Annisburg for one of those and just murdered a bunch of people. Like, sorry, I'm just getting some achievements. But yeah, as you alluded to, Brad, you wrap up your playthrough in the story as Arthur, and you pick up as John.
Yep.
Really weird to see John wearing Arthur's clothes. Like immediately he kind of defaults to those first winter cowboy and his first like default things. He's wearing his hat. I'm like, no, like, it's been interesting to see like what outfits that I adapted to Arthur versus John. But unless people know, and I just want to gauge how crazy do you think this is? The first being
get
the
nuts.
fact that John can pick up the threads of almost everything Arthur was doing.
Yep.
And the moment where that really hit me, and I thought it was so profound, and I was so emotionally invested in it, was, especially considering it was such a stupid mission, was the vet, the one-legged vet who likes to fish.
Herschel.
And I met him as Arthur, but then didn't go back.
Oh.
And because I was like, I gotta finish the story. And that was kind of like the last stranger that was like, wanna go fishing? I'm like, it is Sunday night. I gotta write the script on Tuesday. I do not have time. And so I'm just rushing through, and then I finish it. And then I go back as John. And John, like, knock, like, pops his head in. And Herschel's like, hey, do I know you? And he's like, no, I have this journal here. And he mentioned that he met you. And I figured, hey, I would just come by and let you know that he passed. And Herschel's like, I'm sorry to hear that. And he's like, yeah. He's like, he saved my life. He was a good man. And he's like, oh. And he's like, well, I was just going to take him fishing. You want to go fishing? John's like,
hell yeah.
I rode all the way up here. Why not? Let's do it. And it was like,
So
that's
jolly.
so great. Like at
Man.
any stage. And that's like a 4 or 5 stage side quest. So like at any point, they've added this part to the script where he says, oh, who are you? Depending on where you leave that with Arthur. And I have not experimented with this because I did a lot of strangers before I got end credits. But like, thinking back to like everyone you meet and everything all those bounties, you can do them as John. All of those, the gunslingers, you can do those as John. And like John comments on them and, and I'm sure has, like, there's some lines of dialogue I was like, I bet that's the same line. I bet Arthur says the same exact thing. But like some things John has a particular attitude. It was really emotional for me finding that moment where the journal splits, like seeing the last thing Arthur wrote. And then, like, you get John, and he's like, oh, I just found this journal. I thought I would write in it. So what do you think about that? I mean, did you have any moments with John at the end there that were profound in that way?
I did all the story stuff I could as Arthur.
Oh, sure. And I would, too. If I hadn't reviewed it, I would have
exactly.
devoured all of that
So I didn't
stuff.
get that. It's funny you bring up the Herschel side quest because that actually hurt my emotional investment at some point accidentally because he gives you the horse. Okay. And I did that quest line near the end of Arthur's life. So that huge, big emotional payoff where you kill the horse or the horse dies and he's like apologizing to it. I was like, well, I just got this horse for like 2 minutes. So like I got that horse right before I went to finish Arthur's playthrough.
And then you lose your stable.
You lose the horse.
Okay, I ditched mine, dude.
Yeah, but I'm saying it wasn't the horse that I had been
With the whole time.
attached to the entire
Gotcha.
game. It was
Yeah.
this horse that I just got, and it was like this big payoff of like, oh man, now you got to kill your own horse. So like that kind of like hurt me in a way. I was like, oh,
That
damn
sucks,
it.
yeah.
So I didn't get that like gut punch.
I saw some people that were actually angry, not necessarily as taking over as John, but that their morality
Went back to
erased.
middle,
Their
yeah.
horses were erased. Like a lot of their progress
Lost your money.
was erased.
I mean, you're a new person years later.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, what do you think, Brad? Do you think that there was a way to fix
it
that,
didn't
or
bug me because I already like maxed it out. Like I feel like the game gave me plenty of time to max it out, but I could see that if you're like close to it, then you're just like. I mean, maybe a little upset, but to me, it's a different person years later, so it makes sense to me.
it was tricky for me because I'm always a good boy whenever I play games, and in doing most of the story stuff, there were not a lot of good opportunities left. Like there are more accidental opportunities. So like I kept taking a hit, and it's like right at the 50-yard line. Like I didn't even know what it looked like when you went bad. It turns into a skull, a
Yeah.
little cowboy at the bottom there. I was like, oh no. So I'm like, donating as much as I can, saying hi to as many people as I can. Like if somebody yells from the side of the road, I'm like, where are you? I'll help you. But yeah, and just fascinating to move on to John. What did you think of just the epilogue in general? We'll talk
my
about that
God.
with favorite missions, but I could also see
Jones.
I was imagining people like, while you're shoveling crap right now, I bet some people are not very happy.
Jones,
about
one of my
this.
favorite parts was just building his house. I loved building the house. Him and Charles setting it up, the music going, Uncle just kind of sitting in the background, just nailing stuff, and it's showing the time lapse. Dude, it was beautiful. I loved it.
It was unreal. The bond it really drives home with Charles as well.
Oh
in that, like, Charles is so epic throughout the whole game, but even more so at the end there. Like, I don't think John could have done all this by himself.
No,
you know,
oh, sure, yeah.
It's like, dude, it's so like Charles is really helping him out here, and it. Like, I'm interested to go back to Red Dead Redemption 1 again and just thinking of the implications there of, like, dude, Charles, like, helped build this here, you know? So,
And you don't really know. I think he mentions in one, he's like, yeah, I got a farm up north or something, but like you don't really make the mental connection that it's Beecher's Hope. And so when I finished Red Dead 1 and they were like, go back home, I'm like, where is the I've rode through this place a billion times. I didn't know I owned it. Like, cool. But yeah, it's really interesting to see it. Obviously, if they could make the interior of that house look as good as they could on the
Oh, of
360
course.
PS3,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
would have. But it's like nice to see the new
The
wood,
layout,
you know,
yeah.
like it was really funny when I first unlocked Beecher's Hope. I was just like, oh, here we go, I'm going home. And then I like ride over and there's nothing there. I was like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
Like I just bought the property. There's nothing here.
did you stand on the porch and just think, like, I'm going to die here?
Yeah, like
In the
right
barn.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I saw the barn
Yeah.
right over there. And there's,
damn
there's all sort. Yeah, all. So we'll get to that in a second. But just like all sorts of allusions to John's death. Like when he's missing, they all get back and they're like, "Yeah, have you seen John? I haven't seen John." And like right away, I think the first mission you do, Arthur's like, "Everything works out for that boy."
Yeah.
So it's like, and I actually got somebody sent me an email that was frustrated because they thought the game was kind of winking that you were going to be Sadie at the end. Because you meet her right away. You meet Sadie before you meet John. Yeah. And like this game really is an interesting arc for her to kind of like reclaim her freedom and start over a new lifestyle. Like if that gang hadn't, come in and raided her house, like she would have lived a totally different life. But I think there were a lot of suggestions at the beginning of that game. And we can get into the beginning, talking about the beginning versus the end. But I'm doing my bad boy playthrough now. And there's not a lot of decisions you get in the beginning. So the other day I just played for like an hour and 15 and I'm like, okay, I'm just skipping all the cutscenes and just doing the missions really quickly. And it's interesting that like you start out with the gang, you meet them. He mentions like Pearson and the lady that takes care of the camp. I got everybody's name up here. Who stabs that one guy in the neck in that one
Yeah.
mission and
Oh my God,
takes out Dutch's girlfriend.
Yeah.
I can't remember her name.
Oh,
I got a bunch of names here.
dude. I was like, oh.
Karen, maybe?
But no, Karen's the drunk.
Karen's a drunk.
I'll maybe look that one when you guys are talking. But he mentions them. So you like slowly kind of get introduced to people. But like the first mission is you and Dutch. And then you're like, okay, we got to go do this. We go out. Oh, there's a mysterious guy in the distance. Who is it? Micah. And he comes like out of the snow like, hey guys. And it's like, it's just crazy. Like not even in that headspace at all. But you go back and play now and it's like, and there's your antagonist.
Yep.
There's and not only because he's got a bad attitude and obviously him and Arthur have, and you can sense it even in that
friction,
scene that
yeah.
they have a rivalry, but that he's, selling you guys out. That you mentioned in one mission, he's like, God, a cop showed up real quick.
Yeah, right on the train robbery with John after you do that.
Yeah, they
Arthur
talk
says,
about that.
well, they were on us pretty quick there.
Yeah.
Like, alluding
the
to
seeds,
it.
baby.
Yeah, yeah.
So what did you think? Did you have any expectations even at the beginning of the game when they were introducing stuff in the story about how it would end, that Micah would be the bad guy, that obviously, Arthur and Dutch are going to have a standoff, but and you were talking a little bit of disappointment. Obviously, there's going to be lots of glowing, happy talk during this spoiler mode, but you rightfully were a little upset with chapter 6 and
I was just upset with the morality system and the way it all tied in. I thought it kind of fell flat at the end because it all rests on that final decision of, do I save John? Do I go for the money? And it hurt me even more so because I played middle ground, and I felt like this game wanted you to kind of commit to, maybe
one side or the other. That's the problem, man, with morality systems. They always want you to go one or the other, not the middle.
Totally, because this and The Witcher 3 are so well written and just so good, and there's so much variety to the quests and what you're doing that sometimes I go good, sometimes I go bad, depending.
In the first game, wasn't it you could kill Bill or let him live or something like that? You could do a few things like that, but it was even less in this game. It felt
when it's Bill and
Javier?
When it's Bill and the sketchy leader in Mexico,
Yeah.
you're with Alande, I think.
Santa.
You're with your buddy at the time. And there's both of them there. It's Bill and the other guy. Whoever you shoot, the other guy shoots the other one.
Okay.
So you either shoot Bill or the other guy.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then Javier, you can either give him to him dead or alive.
Yeah.
Turn him in alive to Ross.
I remember, actually, not to go back to Red Dead Redemption 1, but don't they? I remember I didn't shoot to Santa, and I walked away, and they shot him behind, so I put the camera behind me as I was walking away, and you could just see him, take him out, oof. Or I think it might have been the president or whatever. There was one death that happened that way.
Yeah.
But any other just expectations? Anything when you started out the game and you finished up? It was interesting. I knew it was gonna happen, but it's I was so tired at the end of, just getting not sleep for 5 straight days and then getting into chapter 6 and everybody's sad. Jack broke my heart, man. You talk to Jack in chapter 6 and he's like, I just hope people stop arguing. And you're like,
Jack,
Well,
please.
I know Brad will echo the sentiment here. And I like to get crazy with my theories and my expectations going into games.
Sure.
It's one of my favorite pastimes. Boardwalk Empire vibes.
Yeah, here we go.
To the max, because you think about the dates. You think about Red Dead Redemption 1 ending with Jack in 1917. The game is in 1914. This, we're in 1899. It's a prequel. And so I thought of that maybe going in. I was like, well, I wonder if we're going to get, some kind of
Flash forward
or anything. Maybe we'll pick up as Jack in the epilogue. Maybe they'll do that. It's
Yeah.
because Jack's a kid and it was building that relationship kind of throughout the game. So then you do the Jack gets kidnapped and Alande Alande? Not Alande. It was oh my god, it was just there.
I don't know. Keep going.
Yeah. So
Angelo Bronte?
Bronte. There it is. Thank you, Jones. So you meet up with Bronte, and then you start learning about the Italians and Chicago and New York.
Planting seeds.
And I was like, dude, are we straight up going to Prohibition Mafia? Because there's even bootlegging missions, dude, where you're
on the bayou, dude.
yeah, so there's bootlegging and Italian mob and the mob's not the mob yet, but Italians at Chicago and New York, all these seeds were planted. I was maybe expecting some kind of
No
flash
way.
Can I give you a reason why we might not? And
Red
this
Dead-
is something
Red Dead
that's
3?
this is something that's really fascinating about this world that they've built, and you just said it, New York.
Yeah.
Not Liberty City.
Not Liberty City.
New York.
Yeah.
It's not New Mexico, it's New Austin.
Yeah.
New York. It's the United States of America.
Yeah.
And the states are named different. It's weird. You're in this weird kind of section that I'm guessing goes from New Mexico to Louisiana. That's kind of although you just kind of skip over Texas, I guess. But just this kind of rough approximation of the the South of the U.S. I wonder what their plans are in the future. I wonder if once you're done with something like this, you're we're not going to get to the Old West for another 15 years. Let's just step back. Let's do Bully 2. Let's do GTA 6.
Oh, they're doing 6
Then we'll get back to this way. They're on I don't know. I don't know.
much, yeah.
I appreciate your hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
But speaking of New Austin, one thing I want to talk about before we get into specific missions, And this is one of the biggest things I was shaking. I actually thankfully told Sean, our trainer, because I was like, you're not gonna play Red Dead, right? And he was like, if you have something you're excited to say, you can tell me. And I was like, all right. And I'm like, 60% of the first game is in the ending of this game. I can't describe to you, I was freaking out like 4 a.m, and I was just like, all right, I just got to finish this. And I'm like, I'm in the epilogue now. This can't be that long. And it just keeps going and going. And then Sadie's like, hey, can you help me with this mission? And I was like, oh, cool. We finally made it to Blackwater and that area by his house. And I'm guessing you can't go there. I tried to go there earlier and got hunted like immediately. Like guys showed up with shotguns and killed me right away.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, okay, that's the barrier to get into this place. They have a shot actually in the IGN review of him running around Blackwater. And I'm like, is that John? Did they put John in the review? Or is that like, or is there some way, which I don't know, like maybe there's some way you can get in there without
Sneak
the law
in, just
chasing you
shoot
down,
your
or-
way in, dude.
But I like that they tease Blackwater. They're like, there's that one mission where you have the binoculars and you're watching it from a distance. So I always kept thinking like, all right, maybe we'll get Blackwater again. We see Blackwater in the trailers that they've released, but like that'll be it. We'll get to the homestead and then they'll finish the game there. And then Sadie's like, I need your help with this one bounty mission. And it's an armadillo. And I'm like, Arma what? And we like go to the edge of the cliff and like look ahead in the
look down,
binoculars and I'm
yeah.
like, and I can see armadillo and I'm like, okay, wait. I'm like, temper your expectations. It's in the distance. This is all probably a big painting or something. They didn't model it. And like we're following them into this canyon. It's just the canyon. Then we do that mission. It auto ports you back to your house. And I'm like, okay, they gave us a little taste of the old game. Great. And then I like zoom in on the map and it's like I'm like, McFarlane's right. What? And like I run it and like I can't think of another game that made me feel that way. Of just like I ran right into Thieves Landing, being like Thieves Landing, and all these like Lobos guys were like, like shot at me, and then like went straight to McFarlane's Ranch, went straight to Armadillo,
cool.
and like I can't think of another game that's done that. That's so crazy. What a random just little there you go at the end of the game. There's a bunch of extra stuff, a whole new gang you haven't discovered yet that now you can go chase.
I knew it was gonna happen because like the first thing I did was open up the map,
right.
and like you
huge.
can go, Blackwater's there,
Yeah.
and the map you can move it all the way down. So I'm just like, oh, you're gonna have all of Red Dead 1 just like in
Right.
it. So
With
it
the
didn't surprise me,
with the
but it still
exception-
blew
yeah.
me away.
With the exception of Mexico, which makes sense because
Yeah.
John's never been there.
Yeah.
So like when he goes to Mexico, so that's why like that big moment we all love with Far Away and that like that ride, like it has to have meaning that he's like, I've never been to Mexico before, and how like fish out of water he is when he first meets Ricketts and just like, whoa, this place is crazy. Bummer that there's no structures there except for that one fort.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time like on the border, like with binoculars, like before the game even comes out, just like what's in there?
Yeah.
Where's Mexico? You brought up Tumbleweed.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people that don't know that maybe it's been a long time since you played Red Dead Redemption 1, Tumbleweed is there but not there in Red Dead Redemption 1 because it's like burnt out. If you've played it, if you remember the mission where you save Bonnie McFarlane from being hanged, it's in that town. And so like a lot of the buildings don't have rooftops and it's just it's like classic Western ghost town. And when I went into Tumbleweed for the first time, they were bringing a prisoner into jail, and the prisoner's like, me and my brothers are gonna come in and burn this thing to the ground. And I was like, I see what you did there.
insane.
The sheriff's super cocky.
Yeah.
When you can go, there's a couple bounties you can do in that town for I think they're called the Lobos. I can't remember. Every time you bring them in, like the sheriff's really cocky and pushy with them, and you're just like, this is not gonna work out, man. You're gonna get burnt. So yeah, just what a fascinating thing. And plus, there's all sorts of animals that weren't in New Austin. There's all sorts of stuff there's animals exclusively there. There's a hunting challenge. You get cougars. There's tons of cougars in New Austin. So it is like a viable place. It's not just this like
totally.
end game thing. But help me. Did any other game do this? Is there any other game?
When you like
any other
go
open
back,
world game?
When you go back,
it's like, here's this whole
I don't think to
crazy
the
map.
extent of
Yeah.
like Red Dead. What?
The Dark Souls spoilers.
Oh, spoilers, I guess for 3.
Yeah.
You like go back to
a place.
in
You don't have to
Orlando
say, okay.
from it. Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, sick. But it's not like the same layout.
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
like that is. But I can't think of anything like to the extent of Red Dead.
And it's crazy to see the vegetation and the difference that makes. It's crazy to see, like I said, just the towns and how they evolved. Armadillo's like the opposite of Tumbleweed, where it's like, don't go there. There was a plague.
And just
they're yelling at you to leave. I don't know why the market's still open in Armadillo, but like,
Yeah, the sheriff
and the
leaves.
Lobos guys will just run in there. Like every now and then, like 3 of them were just like, hey, they'll come in shooting guns in the air and like freaking everybody out.
The attention to detail too, because you're John and you're going to McFarlane's ranch, but they haven't met each other yet.
Yeah.
So I rode in because Bonnie's friggin' awesome. So that was the first place I went to. Pretty much when I beat the game, I explored down there a little bit and moved on to other
Right.
Easy Allies projects. But the first thing I did, Jones, was go to McFarlane's ranch, went up to her house, and there was someone there, and he was just like, "Hey, yeah, McFarlane's out just on vacation, or out touring." I was like, "That's so cool."
Not only can you see the buildings they haven't built yet, because she mentioned, she's like, when the barn burns, she's like, my daddy built that barn and it's not built yet. And so you can not only see, oh, that's where the barn's gonna go. There are trees. That's like, I bet they use those trees to to take the wood to build those. Like the jail that you do missions in, and McFarlane's Ranch isn't there yet. The market's not there yet. But it's just neat seeing. I like went by a lady and she was like on the porch looking at me like sweeping. It's like, I'm gonna live in this shack one day. Body's gonna drag me back here, barely alive, and put me up in this shack. But that just absolutely blew me away as far as like what they're expecting you to do. And there's still some things we can talk about before we get into like some of our points from the actual campaign. But there are. I haven't seen any of these, but if you go into the information, I believe, like the actual like your progress in the game, there are 7 or 9 tombstones that you can go find. So it's everyone that died. With the exception of Micah, screw him.
Spit on his grave.
Because you can go back. I actually didn't realize you could pick his gun up, and that was like a part of your compendium, like his type of gun.
Got it.
So I went to do the gunslinger things, and I'm like, oh, they all have custom guns. And I was like, oh, crap. And so I'm like running up the mountain, like, please be there, please be there, please be there. And like, it's still there, like, all
awesome.
decomposed. And I'm just like, yoink. Dropped a fire bottle on him, like, later. Like, got back on my horse. But I kept telling you, and you never did it, but Brad did. If you go back to Rhodes, and you can see this in the credits, I believe. I don't know if
Yeah, it's in the
morality.
credits.
It was in my credits, but I don't know if morality affects that.
Oh.
Like I don't know if you're a bad boy, if the game even thinks you care about the gang or like what happened to them. But you can see Pearson. He gets a job in Rhodes, and he's now owns the market there. So when you go into Rhodes, he'll be like, "Hey, what's up?" And you can talk to him, and like he has something new to say. I've been in there like 6 or 7 times. He's brought up a new conversation every single time I went in. He looks at a picture of the gang. It's up on the wall. You can go see it.
Pearson and I were good buds.
Yeah.
Gave him so much meat.
Yeah, give him meat.
I loved Sadie's mission that just starts from you talking to Pearson. Did you get that? Where like I just went up to Pearson to like sell something, and Sadie was like, "And the last time," and he's like, "I'm tired of dealing with you," and I was like, "Should I come back later?"
Yeah.
And she like stabs her knife into the table, and she's like, "You come with me right now. We're doing." I was like, "Whoa, a mission! Here we go."
Yeah.
But Pearson's great. Bumped into Mary Beth at the train station in Valentine.
Yep. Did that one.
And she like gave me the book that she's been writing, and
Yeah.
like it was neat to like I'm scanning people, and there's a lot of places I want to sit in Red Dead 2 that you can't sit. I'm like, there's a lot of like I'll be in town and be like, why can't I just sit down right here? Come on.
Thank you, Jones.
And like the
Yes.
bench is at the train station. So
Yep.
why the hell can't I sit down?
Let
here?
me sit.
sit.
I had that thing with Dragon Quest 11 the other day. I was like, let me just sit on that bench.
Let him sit. But I went by and like just scanned her, and I was like, oh, and I'm like, Mary Beth, and I'm like, why does this stranger have a name? Mary Beth. She's like, hey, John, and like, and apparently like, they're all over the place. You can like be reunited with a bunch of people. So I could guess like, I could see people that weren't necessarily expecting Arthur to die, even though they clearly set a precedent for it. The game's called Red Dead Redemption, and so I did not think he was going to survive that. But
It was a
at the
bonus
same time,
that
Charles moves on,
exactly.
Sadie moves on. Like,
Huge bonus that
yeah,
they lived.
I thought they were all gonna die.
Me too. The fact that Sadie and Charles got out alive was incredible, and showing Pearson and Mary Beth and all them. Tilly also, when it showed Tilly like with a man and a child, I was just like, all right, Tilly made it. Yes.
I really wanted to be friends with Karen. I like made a point to talk to Karen every chance I could, and she just like kept getting drunker and drunker. I'm really curious to see what happened. I gotta like look that up and see like where do you find Karen. And just the homestead in general. Like I can also imagine a lot of people that were just like, God, like you said, you loved building the fences and or building his house.
I
like,
love building the fence, too.
I also like the stuff around the
ranch?
the
Yeah.
ranch, like because I think. You get a vibe. I think it really kind of suggests you're like, how long is this going to go on for? Like, how long is this game?
Return of the
And so
King.
I think, it
Return of
does.
the King,
It
the
has
whole
like
time.
8 endings, but like I did like that vibe of realizing like everything that I had been through, like all the things that I had seen in this game, and like, man, it is still going. But it's still fascinating to go back. Even now, like I'm in like I must be like 120 hours into this game, and every now and then when I feel like it, I'm like, oh, I'll go home and I'll have a meal at home and just say hi to my family, and like they'll be in the back. Like one time, Uncle was playing guitar and Abigail was singing, so I came in and sat next to him. They were singing a song. Another time, Jack was just wailing harmonica. And they're all like listening to
That's
Jack.
so funny.
One time there's like a gazebo in the back. One time I went in and Uncle and Abigail were like singing a song, and like they kept screwing it up, so like they weren't getting the words right, and when they would mess up a word, they would like joke with each other, and like
So
Jack
good.
was clapping along and talking. And I think one of my favorites, I told Huber about this the other day, but I came home and it was right at sunset, and Abigail and Uncle were standing next to each other, and they were looking at the sunset. And I got off my horse and watched it with them. And then right when it ended, I turned to look at Abigail, and she turned to look at me, and she's like, "The end of another day," and walked in the house. I'm just like,
So
yes.
crazy.
So it's crazy that
detail.
I'm this far in, 120 hours. I'm still finding new gang encounters. I'm still finding, like one or two new strangers, like a couple of the collection things.
Did you guys find like the really crazy supernatural Easter egg?
Well,
that
there's-
the web internet.
I haven't discovered
Revealed?
those, but I did. They have
Oh.
some website, had like the Easter eggs you missed, and I was like, try me. I missed all of them.
Yeah.
There's a ghost lady that wanders around the bayou. Just this lady in a
Whoa,
dress
ghost
that
lady?
just floats around.
Vamp?
There's a
I didn't see
ghost
the vamp.
train. At one point, like
Ghost
the
train?
phantom train goes by.
Sick.
And I saw a picture of it, but I haven't actually.
There's the
like,
time traveler guy. He was the redhead guy. I think he's like a time traveler.
Who's looking for his friend, or
No, not the Gavin guy. It's like
Gavin.
a different guy. But
Hell
you,
is Gavin.
You find like artifacts or somewhere around the world, like 10. When you go back to it, there's no one there, and there's like the woman with a baby, and it has like the same birthmark on his eye, and she's like, "There's no one with that name that lives here," or something like that.
So freaky.
It's like some time traveling theory, and there's like a thing about like the cult from GTA 5 being in Red Dead or something like that.
Dude, sick.
well, there's the cult that you
Yeah,
rescue.
but
What's her
there's
name's
like
son from.
similarities
There's another-
between that and GTA 5. It's crazy, dude.
So cool.
and which is weird if they're comparing it to GTA 5, because again, the Liberty City, New
Yeah,
York,
yeah.
like weird.
It's like similar.
other dimensions. There's a UFO in it apparently.
Yeah, there's a UFO. I saw it. The
saw a
picture,
picture,
or video
yeah.
of it. It was awesome.
And like, as much as I love this game, like I don't have the energy to go and find that.
Cowboys versus
just
Aliens DLC.
Cowboys versus
Let's
Aliens.
go.
Knowing that it's there.
Let's go.
So yeah, big
Laser gun?
Yeah.
huge game, gigantic end game. Let's talk about some of our favorite missions. I'm gonna throw
Can we
them
talk
out.
about one last story
Sure, of course.
that I didn't. It didn't bother me, but I would have wanted more from Bill and Javier taking Dutch's side. That was
Yes,
such a
that's
huge
what we were
very,
talking.
like,
Yeah,
at the
that's what we were
end.
talking
Yeah.
about. Chapter 6. Like
Yeah.
you really have that one standoff cutscene, and like
Yeah.
that's kind of it, and then you all go your separate ways.
Yeah, so it didn't bother me, but I would have liked just a little more connection there, a little more urgency to them really standing by Dutch. After that was kind of where my RP started to falter, actually, because I was playing this middle ground where I was extremely loyal to the gang. I would kill any witnesses or anyone that got in our way, but I also had a heart and would like donate to the blind
Yeah.
or help people in need. Someone's at the side of the road shot, I would help them. So I was playing this middle ground, and one of the debt collecting missions, one of the final ones for Strauss, you have to go collect debts from two people. One of them has a pregnant girlfriend or wife, and the other one, the husband is dead, and she is a single mother raising the child. I let both of their debts stand as that. And when I came back, I was like, well, maybe I just want to pay for them. I want to go up to
Right.
Strauss and be like, hey, I let them go. We didn't need their cash. Like, take some of mine. We're all good. Arthur gets back and kicks him out and is like, you're a scumbag, Strauss. Get the hell out of here, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Screw you. And I was like, whoa. Then I started talking to people. Javier was sitting in the corner, and Javier was just like, so, Arthur, so much for loyalty, huh? And he was all pissed off. And I was like, let me explore this more.
Yeah.
Like, let me dive into that.
And I told Huber, like, every time he donated money to someone, I was like, I would have given them way more money. I'm loaded.
Yeah.
I don't,
Here's $1.
Yeah,
I'll
here's
give you
$50.
$100.
I'm like, $50?
Yeah.
That's not going to get you very far.
I'll donate all my cash.
But I did like at one point, like Pearson, a couple of the ladies just take off. I thought that was interesting, like getting back in.
Yes.
Um,
Arthur was like, yo, when the time comes, get out. Get out. Loved that. Telling certain
Yeah,
people in the
people.
gang, like, yo,
John,
when
yeah.
things fall apart, get out.
It's interesting that like lines like "this is over," like
Yeah.
from the first trailer, like that is deep
Yeah.
into this game. And PR told me when some of these trailers are coming out, they're like, we don't want to tell you what it is, but they're like, we're surprised. There's some spoilery stuff in there that we're surprised. Like
one's
people
picked
aren't
up
like,
on.
whoa.
Well,
what's
that
going on
line,
there? 'Cause
John-
you can't tell from looking at it.
the end of Red Dead 1, John says the exact same thing that Arthur says. when the time go on, don't look back.
Yeah.
At the very end, when John is in the barn with Abigail
Yeah.
and getting him out,
Yeah.
John says Arthur says the identical thing. So I thought that was a crazy parallel.
So I want to move on to talk about some of our standout missions.
Okay.
You might have some on my list that I already had, but so I want to start with you, Brad.
Oh,
Is there
sure.
anything-
Yeah, I already did a syndrome
that
on
stood
this.
out?
One that
you.
just pops in my mind is the one where you go out in the bayou to find the guy.
I did not
with the
write that one
boat.
down, but that's good,
With the
man.
boat, and there's like
For
the
me and my
monster,
dark water phobia.
Yeah, and there's like the monster gator in there, man. He like bites his foot, and you go in the water after them, dude. And it's coming at you as you're trying to get back on the boat. It was so tense.
It's like Resident
And
Evil 4,
Doug's just
dude.
like, boom, 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 just like popping this thing 100 times. It's not going down. I'm like, can I kill this thing or what? Can you go back and hunt that?
I think
there,
so,
There
yeah.
is a big gator you go
Yeah,
hunt.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
sick. I gotta get that.
That's what I
thing.
liked about the legendary animals is like they're not reskins. Like you
Oh,
like when you
man.
get up close and like skin those things, it's like, whoa, look at this. And that was one of like the big eye-opening ones.
Yeah.
That is a big gator. And I love the way they do legendaries is like obviously you're tracking them and then like once you get to the last thing you're tracking, that's when they spawn it. And sometimes you can see it spawn. You can actually like boop, like see it appear in the like on the map in front of you. And I remember like starting the last thing and looking up, and I'm just like, all right, where is this? Oh my god! And it's
Yeah.
like I know it's the same because it's like an albino almost.
Yeah.
It's like kind
Yeah,
of
it
like
looks
light
way
yellow,
different.
light brownish, and so it really stands out like amidst the darkness of the bayou.
Yeah. Oh, so
but
cool.
yeah, and I show that actually in my review. I show the first person of that mission.
Oh,
because you got the
cool.
lantern. And you're
Yes.
just looking through the trees.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
that was
I
a
love
good,
that.
It was a good first person mission to
Yeah,
do.
it's great.
Anything stand out for you, Huber?
I mean, I did a whole episode of Syndrome on
Right.
my favorite missions. Check that out. It's for my
And I
my
wrote down I
favorites.
think all the ones that you like.
Yeah,
as well.
like obviously A Quiet Time with Lenny out
Yeah, of course.
of control, and any of the heists. The earlier heists I liked more than the later ones, like when Hosea goes down and you rob the big bank.
yeah.
That was cool, but I always prefer small,
Scale.
intimate scale rather than like the giant shootout in the town escaping. You know, Lenny goes down. That really hurts because it's so sudden. But I like the the robbery with Bill because there's no real shootout until you're riding out of the town, and then
Oh, is that where he pretends to be drunk? that one?
Karen does. Karen goes. She can be
okay.
the damsel in distress
Right.
or like the lost
harlot.
or the
Yeah.
lost child. Yeah, and then obviously the train robbery with John is just
Oh,
too
yeah.
good because we didn't get any robberies in Red Dead 1 as John Marston.
Right.
You as a player can go in and like put the bandana on as John Marston, but story-driven robberies, you actually are on the police side of it when
Most of
Dutch
it, yeah.
robs Blackwater in Red Dead 1. You're like on the roof with other agents. So it was cool to finally pull a heist or a job with John on your side. So.
And just one other thing, because it just popped in my head, but one thing I think was fascinating for me because Rockstar talks all the time about every time they make a new map, it's so much bigger. It's you take these other two games we did, it's those combined, and so it was really interesting having New Austin unlock and then zooming all the way out and being like, yeah, that's a lot bigger. You know, like that if that's the old game that they built. And the other thing too, just geographically. I didn't really think about it until Red Dead 2 was over and I went into New Austin, but there's just like no water in New Austin at all. Yeah. There's like one lake and then obviously the river that separates Austin from Mexico. But it just shows all the times you cross the river. That felt really weird the first time I did it, where like the GPS is like, and then just go across the river. And I'm like, can I do this? Like, your horse can actually swim. I was like, whoa. Like, I never did that in Red Dead 1. And like, it just really shows, obviously it's a gift to fans. And obviously I'm sure they enjoyed like remaking New Austin. But like, I think it is a fascinating examination of how much Red Dead 2 has improved. Like how much they made the map look better.
Yeah.
How much they just really like expanded all the biomes, like the jungle and add a lot of, or the bayou and add a lot of this cool stuff.
Really quick too.
I mean, there are jungles in the game. What am I talking? We'll get to that.
Yeah. I'm not just a murdering psycho that loves shotguns and bloody bank heists. My other
You don't use explosive shotgun shells exclusively? Did you ever make any of those?
I did the slug rounds.
Animal fact of the
ones,
slug rounds,
yeah.
exploding shotgun
Yeah.
shells. You hit him in the chest and just
Dude,
Sick.
sick. Another one of my favorite missions. I forget her name, obviously. I unfortunately, because it's been a minute. But Arthur's ex-girlfriend,
Yep.
wife.
I will look her
Oh,
up
yeah,
while
in the
you're
town.
explaining it.
The date?
the date with her, Saint Denis, going to the theater, unreal. I loved that mission so much. Just being able to enjoy a show with her, taking a night off, going on a date, and just getting that like ultimate jolly side of Arthur.
Mary Linton.
Mary Linton. Because I
and
know it was
actually,
Mary. Yeah, it was
if
Mary.
you, I'll shout out the review as much as I can, but if you go back and watch the review, when I talk about the graphics and you hear that sound, it kind of sounds, it sounds like a guitar, but I think it might be like a piano variant, like the ones that like don't like go as deep, like kind of the stuff like the Harry Potter things written on. I was like talking with her and was riding down the sidewalk, and then like I hit a point where I was like, this music's track's really good. I gotta go back and start this mission over. So I like started the mission over, took the sound effects out, just got the music so I could get that track.
Nice.
And it's her theme. Like she has her own theme that just comes up in those missions that you can not do.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to not doing them in my next playthrough. To be the bad boy and go up just like, I need your help. I'm like
nah.
no. Later.
and just the.
I wonder what happens at the end. I wonder if you even see her in the end credits.
Yeah.
If you just
Well, like,
bail
she
on
probably
her.
just doesn't
What
know.
happens when her brother tries to shoot himself in the head if you don't save him?
It'd probably mission fail, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I don't know if it's a mission fail. Because he got shot in my game at first because I wasn't paying attention. I was like, oh shit, dude, I gotta save this kid. So I wonder if.
Yeah.
you could just go back to her and be like,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry.
And just
all I could.
and there's so much room for RP in this game. Again, like that's another example. Is that mission when you go to the theater with her, you can make a move on her. You can like put your
Yeah.
I didn't because
I
it
made the
didn't.
move.
Yeah, I didn't because it didn't feel true to the. It didn't feel right at that moment. I was like, well, our relationship at this point is super strained. This is kind of a diving back into building our relationship back up. Let's have this
Right.
nice date. Maybe on the neck. Like I was like, if another date comes,
Right.
then I'll try to maybe like take it to the next step. But this right now, got to keep my distance to be fair to her. I'm a gang member at this, you know what I mean? Just like,
Yeah.
To be fair, he chickens out when he does it. When you try to put your arm around her, he like goes like that, and she like kind of notices, and he just goes like back real quick.
it's so
But you could do it later with John, with his wife, and he just does it like, naturally. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
But oh god, we talked about RP and like those theaters, man. Like it was fascinating going to
different
that.
shows. Did you go multiple times?
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
so there's the movie that you see in Valentine, and then there's a movie theater in Saint Denis,
Blackwater.
completely different movie that they're showing. And then I immediately, when I saw that theater, I was like, all right, I like got dressed up. I waited until like a friend of mine came over, and I'm like, all right, we like put a fancy outfit on and like went over and saw the show. And we
I love choosing your seat. I'm always like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna sit in the back.
Well, front row because I'm recording it, so I want to get first person and like get really close to it. And they had the same act. So the first act was the Daredevil, and then the second act was the Fire Breather, and then the third act was this gal who came out and did a show and sang like in her band. And then I went back as Mary later, and the Daredevil came out, did a different bit.
Yep.
The Fire Breather came out, did a different choreographed bit, and the end was. Like Camptown
Another
Races
song.
or something. It was like a very popular song of that era. I can't remember it, but like she didn't come back out. And we'll get to Strangers in a second, but like I love the Stranger mission that you do to reunite the kind of Carnival crew.
Oh my
God,
Say, come
yeah.
visit. Did you go
Yeah,
back
they're like,
and visit?
we're gonna be in town. I didn't. I never.
Me
I
either.
never did.
Damn it.
I didn't either.
Damn it! I
dude.
need to know what
You
happens.
can go see their show. You
Yeah.
know, like, and I love that. And I love just. It's fascinating. I actually find that some of the dialogue options at the very end of the game with John and his family are like kind of weak. Like I'll just walk by Jack and he's like, "Hey," Jack's like, "Hi," and like that's about it. Like what they do is cool, but their interactions with you is not that great. It kind of like even when you're sitting at the table, I'm like, maybe we'll have an interesting conversation now, and you don't. But at the same time, like as John, I was by the farm that he worked at for a little bit, and some of the ranchers from that were being held up by. Whatever group is it, maybe the Driscolls, they're like in that area. And so I came by and killed them, and the two ranchers ran off like, ah, and they like, and I got out and looted the two guys. And as I was looting them, they walked back up like, oh, okay. And they're like, thanks, mister, thanks for that. And he gets back on a horse, and I greeted one of them, and John's like, you might want to get another job. Yeah. Like as they walk away. So it's like, wow, like both Arthur and John had all of this dialogue that they recorded just in the off chance that you'll meet them and then want to talk to them as they're walking away. Just like,
Yeah.
crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
Any other favorite missions? I got a list here.
Just go through the list.
Fisher of Men, going fishing with Jack.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
And I
yeah,
think
everyone.
what's interesting about that actually, like, I laughed at a couple times is like they love mission misdirection. They love being like, go talk to Mary Beth, and you're like, okay, and then Arthur's chatting with her for a little bit, and then like some lady comes in like, come on, let's go, and you're like, oh, I'm doing this now. There's one hilariously that Dutch interrupt. I think Sadie, you go
Yeah.
to try to talk to Sadie, and Dutch interrupts you immediately.
Or is the Reverend? It was the Reverend.
Yeah, the Reverend.
Yeah, it was like, I don't want to do a mission for the Reverend, and then Dutch comes. He's like, let's go.
Yeah.
It's like,
What'd you think about that? Was that like kind of was that cheap on
No,
their
I
part,
liked
or
it. I thought
like,
it was cool.
you never know what's gonna happen?
Yeah, I like that.
it was just Rockstar messing around.
And
It was like just them showing the dynamic between the camp of like how people look at each other and stuff like that. Like Dutch just like, yeah, the way I'm talking right now,
Yeah.
kind of thing like that.
I love their fix for when Pearson's not there and you want to sell something. So you just like go up to the table and nobody's there, and then it like brings up the screen and nobody's there, and he's like, "Hi." Walking in, I'm like, "All right, I see what you did there."
Hey, Arthur.
But I like, obviously, it's great to have time with Jack.
Oh.
I hate that clearly, some woman Amanda's age voiced young Jack. Like like it's a ton of dialogue. So
For
I bet
a
it was.
kid, yeah,
it must
as a
have been
kid.
really hard to get a kid in there to read like 800 lines of dialogue. But that was kind of distracting. Like,
Sure.
I'm a little kid. Trust me. And I'm like, no. And then they did get a kid when he grows up a little bit.
Yeah,
Like when he's
yeah,
on the
yeah.
homestead now. It's a kid that voices him, but so that took a little steam out of that mission. But the little animations for me go a really long way. Like in specific cutscene, when you see people get in and off of wagons or off of horses, I love he reaches down and like you pull Jack up and you put him in front of you as you're riding down. And I didn't even think about this, but a friend of mine was furious because he hit chapter 2 and then completely abandoned the story and was running around. And he's like, "How do I fish?" He's like, "I can't fish." He's like, "Where do I use it? Good looking in stores. Like, where do I buy fishing rods?" And then he's like, "Oh, well, I'll just continue the story." And they're like, "Oh, here's your fishing rod." And he's like,
Nah.
we're like, "Okay, fine." But yeah, you got to get through some story stuff before they like finally introduce you to all the elements. But in an example of one mission kind of throwing you a curveball, here comes the law. Not necessarily the law, but I can't remember the name.
Pinkertons.
But
Ross.
Pinkertons, yeah. And you meet Ross for the first
Effing
time,
Ross.
and meets Arthur, and so it's like interesting.
It's insane, like that moment, Jones. Seeing young Ross, young Jack, knowing their destiny, knowing exactly how that ends.
Fishing
Exactly.
Yeah.
by the river.
Just like the
Yes.
end of one.
Yeah. It is like just
him
the-
interrupting little Jack and Jack
yeah.
turning around, "Who are you?" Like, yeah.
The same thing.
God.
Yeah. It's like that little kid's gonna kill you.
So sick.
day.
And it's great because prequels can be cheap sometimes, they can be filler, they can be
Yeah, of
unnecessary. It's like that
Well, like
is
Solo. Like Solo, for example, something that I enjoyed, but clearly was like, in this moment, in this moment, in this moment. You're like,
this
all right.
is
And we were saying
one
before-
small drop in a giant ocean. This one mission, this one moment. Like, yeah, Jack and Ross kind of peek up every now and then for water, but like, it's such just a subtle little thing that like people that maybe haven't even played one or haven't played one since it came out
Yeah.
may not even pick up on it.
Yeah. You mentioned A Quiet Time with lighting, obviously, is hilarious. And it's interesting because Quiet Time, for like a main story mission, reminded me a lot of Grand Theft Auto. And I think
Total GTA vibes right there.
and it's an interesting thing about Red Dead 2 in general that it's not funny.
It's
most of the
much
time.
more serious than
Its
GTA.
comedy is really subdued. They really let you do a lot of silly stuff. It's like obviously like lassoing someone off their horse is hilarious. Like there's a lot of like trouble you can get in that you could find amusing. But and there's a lot of side missions, some later that we'll get to that are super silly. The circus guy specifically is like really off the wall. But that's like par for the course in GTA. Everyone you meet in GTA is nuts.
Wacky,
and so it was interesting like doing this mission and having it not really affect Arthur's personality, I thought. I didn't think less of him for doing this. I wasn't like, oh, they're a bunch of crazy lushes or we're being so irresponsible for doing this. It's like, I bet this happens all the time. You can imagine in their youth the amount of times Hosea Dutch and Arthur went and just got shit-faced.
Dude,
and
when,
just like messed up a town and like,
Oh, I forget because there's just so much of the game. But I remember at a point, you and Lenny, or I think you said, "Hey, Lenny, want to get a drink?" It's like way later in the game, and Lenny's like, "I don't think that's a good idea." Arthur. So good.
But little things, one of them that you can test right away if you're going back and replaying it is that the bar fight, not the quiet time with Lenny, but the bar fight with Javier. I think the first time you get a split mission in chapter 2, it's Hosea going after the bear and Javier with the bar fight. And you can obviously do those in either order. And I did Javier first, and when I went out with Hosea, he mentioned the bar fight. He's like, we can't do that. He's like, we got to be careful in Valentine. We're in a new time now. And it's interesting going back now and seeing like how crazy things get in 4, 5, 6 and realizing how tranquil and wonderful they are in 2 and 3. And then when they say, he's like, I don't know, John's like, I don't know where we are, but we're gonna make the best of it. And you're like, yeah, this is as good as it gets. Like, this is really kind of the peak of this lifestyle that they tried, and all they're doing the whole time is talking about how better it's gonna be, and you don't realize this is the best.
One
Just
last
enjoy it.
job.
One last job.
Need more
Theme of the
money.
game. Yeah.
It's a boardwalk mission, dude. When they take Jack, that's the turning point of that entire game.
Oh yeah, it is.
I didn't
know,
write that
that
mission down, but
Blood
I mean,
feuds.
you know, like right there, baby. Like that. It's
Yeah.
basically that
That's
moment,
like
like
the
all
one
of
time
them
in the
lined
game,
up.
Yeah.
Where they walk in
do
and
that.
and another thing just to point out, a lot of people were sensitive about spoilers and reviews and stuff like that. I want to point out that none of the missions that I'm going to mention right now I included in the review very specifically. Like, I was so tempted.
That's big for Jones.
I was so tempted to put that shot of all of them walking up because, for example, you see Hosea walking out of that burning house in the trailer. In one of the trailers they released, you see that house burning down, and it's like, you know, like Brad Pitt burns down his house in Interview with the Vampire. Like, I guess we're accustomed to the idea of a big like
house
Louisiana
burning.
mansion
Plantation,
burning to the
yeah.
ground. I guess I don't know,
Burning
but
down.
so people
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily think something of it. But I was like, I did show you up on the balcony shooting, and I'm like, I hope that's not too spoilery. But that moment and the track, the beginning of my review is that track, boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom, and they're like, it's like, let's go, and the whole gang goes like, and I think you can definitely get you can feel the weight of that in the beginning. You go on a lot of like 1 or 2 person missions, and then when you rob that train that like the dynamite doesn't work and you got to jump on, like everybody goes, and so you now have like 7 people all talking to each other, and like definitely feels different. I think they did a good job with the in mission on like traveling en route dialogue that you would have.
Do you think online you'll be able to ride that deep
What do you mean?
8-man posse?
I don't know.
Oh sure, I mean yeah, it's
That'd be awesome.
32 is the max in GTA, and I don't know. Is that
Yeah.
map harder to run with all its buildings and fast cars and helicopters and stuff than Red Dead? I don't know. I wonder.
Yeah.
How much stranger stuff is going to be in there? How much what's the law going to work like in that? I don't know. We can talk about that for hours. Icarus and Friends blew my mind. This is the hot air balloon mission.
Oh yeah.
my god, yeah,
I was so bummed when he died, dude.
Oh,
Like, oh, come on. I was hoping I want him to live, dude. He was so cool.
Yeah. That was such a bummer.
And I just wanted to go back to that hot air balloon. Let me
Yeah.
ride this everywhere, but like
no-
clearly
yeah.
they're like we designed these clouds in this area and the weather like for this one specific part. But I mean my
Oh, and the like Tesla coil at that. Remember that mission?
oh yeah, that
The
crazy
Stranger mission,
yeah.
It was like the Frankenstein
But
robot.
I just when we went above the clouds, man, my jaw hit the floor. I was like,
Yeah.
look at this game. Like that was crazy. All just in one continuous thing, going up above and then back down and landing on the island. And of course the shootout's really fun. But yeah, that just from a visual standpoint, that really blew me away.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good example. I bet there was like a meeting like that Rockstar had when they're writing this stuff, and they're like, okay, we're going straight from GTA 5 to this. What can we do that's really unique? What can we do that's unusual? And someone's like, hot air balloons. And it's like, okay, how do we do that? And like, I wonder if just the concept of a hot air balloon, then the whole idea of John being on an island came out of that. It's like, it's got to be a place you can't get to. And it's interesting that you can see that. And like, I wonder if you can even get over there. You can go, if you're in Endgame now and you want, because the middle of the lake in the middle drove me crazy because I could see it was called something, but you can't, even if you just run along the shore, you can't highlight
okay.
it. And so I killed a man for his canoe and then found canoes at the end.
Kill the man for his
One of the
canoe.
only bad things I ever did. And I felt bad because in slow motion, the guy like went for his rifle and I'm just like, sorry, I'm taking your canoe. But if you're in Blackwater and you go south, there's canoes, right? There's like 2 or 3
because that's
of
where
them.
you landed the canoes, I think, or they landed canoes right when they had Sean.
Oh.
Do you remember they're pulling Sean ashore?
Oh, okay.
Because like I remembered that because I saw them post game.
I was
like,
wondering
oh,
if
these
there
the
was still
canoes
going to
they
be a
use?
boat in Lemoyne at your chapter 4 spot because
Yeah, I'm not sure.
you can't like buy a boat there.
Yeah.
Or in chapter 3 as well, you can buy a boat and it's like harbored up. But like again, went to that dock. Like, damn, no boat. But if you want to, and again, you can just go around all those little tiny islands that are in that lake in between Blackwater and Rhodes. Like you can go there and get off, and there's animals there and stuff. And pro tip: if you want to, if you're like, where the heck? I only have like 80 animals out of 260. Like 100 of those are birds.
Yeah.
There are so many different birds in this game. So when you're riding on horseback and just like 3 birds on a bush will like fly away, like get them. Like those, like all of those are different. Blue jays, canaries, like they're all different crazy things. And
we're ready.
and farms I didn't think about a lot, like cows, that's a breed, like
totally.
dogs, that's a breed. Every town has a different type of dog. Chickens, there's a bunch of different types.
Too
like-
massive, man.
yeah, just outside of Saint Denis, like
If you
there
get a platinum
are.
in this game, you're a psychopath.
Yeah, you're a psycho.
And I salute you.
Yeah.
I'm about 120
Yeah.
hours in, 89.3%.
Oh my god.
I just want to get to 90. I just want 90.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. So yeah, getting up that hot air balloon blew my mind.
Yeah.
A fine night of debauchery, the riverboat casino
yeah.
shootout with is that Charles or Javier that goes upstairs?
It's,
Is that Charles?
Javier.
Is that Javier?
Yeah.
But like putting on the nice suit. Somebody actually reached out to me via Twitter and they're like, "How did you take your satchel off?" I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "That one shot from the review when you're walking through that casino." And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's just in that mission." He was like, "I want to take my satchel off." I'm like, "It's stuck. There's nothing. You got to bring that thing in."
Dude.
But just that 5 minute kills me. You can't go back. There's a stranger mission actually. The gunslingers. When you finish the gunslinger chain, they meet you on the riverboat, but it's instant, so you can't like it's in the cutscene, and then they board you, take you
I
right off,
know.
and it's like I want to go on a riverboat. Damn it.
That made me really.
That'd be
think of-
amazing, and I would love. I mean, they've added yachts to GTA 5 and stuff. I would love some kind of online riverboat
Please,
live thing.
I'm begging for it.
So you sign online, and it's like riverboat leaves in 20 minutes, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, so you can like go to the shore, and everybody can line up, and then like you're stuck on this boat. If you jump off, stamina, you can't make it
Yeah,
to
you're
shore.
drowned.
So it's like, what's gonna happen on this boat? Like,
I love poker, but I understand that not everyone does or even
Right.
knows how to play. So I appreciated that you could either use the dude to cheat
Yeah, he would
Yeah.
tell you.
or you could just play.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, tell me.
I cheated my way
Tell
through.
me.
Thank you very much.
Super cool.
Let's
super
wrap up
cool.
this story mission. And just poker in general, not really a story thing, but like I love, because I just tried to do a couple of the gambling challenges, and one was just like win so many things of poker, earn so much at it. And it's fun, like while you're playing, like people get up and get down, and like time passes, and like people will come by and just watch.
Yep.
And then like, all right, and then they'll move on. And like, I love like one guy got up and he's like, I'm out of money. And he got up and left. And then like 2 hours later in game time, like came back like really quietly and just like,
Yeah.
put his money in.
Always
So
like
cool.
order some food, get a shot, sit down at the table.
Yeah.
It's just God. Just want to live in this game.
The Fine Joys of Tobacco was a shot I almost put in the trailer, and that's when you burn the plantation, not the mansion, when you burn the fields.
Yeah.
I remember this mission being a little janky for me.
Okay.
Like trying to like set the fires.
Oh, at first I was like, I was like, how much do I have to put down? Then,
Yeah.
then I saw it like disappear. I was like, oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
It's like San Andreas burning the pot fields.
I was thinking
Totally.
of Far Cry, dude, the whole
Yeah.
time.
Far Cry vibes.
Plessis, yeah.
But that was a shot. There was just one shot I had just walking through and just fire behind me. And I was like, that's too spoilery. I can't.
Yeah.
People would be like, what the hell was that mission? But just visually and just fire in general. Like, there was one time I was super sadistic and I think it was either the Murphys or I think it was the Skinners, and they're up in tall trees, and they're like this super
Skinner
psycho.
brothers,
Like,
yeah.
I love that. Like one time I went up and there were just like 8. I could see the X's on the trail, and I was like, "Whoa, where they're like deer or something?" And it was just people like tied up to trees as I'm walking by. Like, whoa! And I'm like, they're gonna jump me any second now. They didn't. It was just like Skinners were here. Like, oh no! And I found a camp, and I couldn't get to it in time. Like there was a guy that he was on top of, and then they were like grabbing a woman. And I like wasn't sure if I should get involved. I'm like, wait, what's happening here? Like, what side are they on? And I just wasted time. And he like killed the woman, shot the guy. I'm like, no. And I was like, oh man, I should. Okay. And like I learned a lesson. I'm like, anytime I see a fight, I'm always just gonna kill the guy I think is the instigator. And so the rest of them popped up and saw me, and I was like, you shouldn't have. Boom, boom, boom. Kill all of them and lumped them all in the fire.
Oh my god.
So I just had a pile of Skinners, and every time I lumped a new guy on, the fire climbed
Yeah.
up a little bit higher, and
Jeez,
like.
it's so funny.
There's a lot of burning stuff. There's a mission you go on with Javier where you like he burns a shack as a distraction. You can just see it like slowly creep up. A lot of cool like just fire effects you can do. If
Yeah.
there's a tent, like it'll burn down. Creepy stuff. The Gilded Cage, the mayor's party where you wear a tux.
Yeah.
I
dude.
wanted to love this mission more than I did.
That's such a Uber mission.
Yeah, I just broke my own rule. I vow to never really like compare something to another thing. Like, oh
Sure.
well, it's not as good as that. Like I just kept thinking of Dishonored and like Assassin's Creed.
Sure.
And like Yeah, I don't know. There wasn't a lot to like interact with in the mission.
Sure.
I thought it felt very hands off, and like
Sure.
it all could have been done in a cutscene. I felt like there was no reason for it to be gameplay other than to like, this is a cool like this is the only part of the game that looks like this. We're having a really cool like party.
Yeah, and the interior of his
And the
house.
interior
like,
and
you
everything.
can't go in there otherwise. Or
Yeah.
maybe you can. I haven't tried. But so yeah, I think the game did a good job at being like, check out this interior. The first that first train robbery where you go into that last carriage and like Javier and Mike are like, whoa! They walk in like,
Yeah.
look at this. I can get used to something like this.
Yeah.
And
I
I
need to go
love
back and do it again.
I love Bill. They make fun of Bill when because his suit's like too small and he's like, it's
Yeah.
like the pants are like riding up and he's just really uncomfortable and like the more I think about it, I think that's like the difference between Red Dead and a lot of other multi-character open world single player games where I wouldn't be laughing at, I'm laughing at Bill also because I went through a whole nother game with him, but like if you hadn't spent that much time with Bill, if you hadn't seen him in camp just like leaning up against like a chair like or drunk or just yelling at people, like all those instances added up to being that so damn funny when we're in that car and you see him just like,
Yeah, he's
no
like
hat,
the
you know,
he's like the punching bag of the group.
Yeah,
Everyone
yes.
always makes fun of him.
Yeah.
I love his just gigantic horse.
Yeah,
and
the
I
horse.
missed it in the beginning, but when they're talking about horses, I think he says he's like, yeah, one time I tried to get on Bill's horse and it threw me right off. He's like, only Bill can get on that cow. I just thought that was different, and I love getting different outfits and dressing them
Oh,
up,
yeah.
specifically if like their hairstyles are going to change. And then here we go, getting into the later parts of the story. No one I can talk about, and I remember getting the Slack message from Huber that just says Panama.
Panama.
WTF.
I thought it was like I thought it was Panama, but it's Gurama.
Oh, Garama. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I sent you a message too when I
Yeah.
got there. I was like, dude, it's turning Uncharted.
And I wonder that was the same thing I messaged back to Huber, that I wonder if that was like shots fired at Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
That was like Rockstar being like, you want jungles? We can do jungles.
Yeah, I was like on a waterfall in a lush jungle. I was like, whoa, wait a second. This is a cowboy game, right?
But like, I mean, you really feel like obviously like fish out of water, but you're just wondering like, what in the hell? And clearly that's what they wanted you to
Yeah.
think. They want to give you this, put you in a position where you're like, I did not see the game going in this direction. Like, and it's interesting after
You lose all that money too.
Well, it's interesting after, not only money, you lose everything. You
Yeah.
lose your outfit, you lose your hat. I remember the first guy I killed that had a hat. I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
I have some stupid looking hat on now,
Same,
but at
yeah.
least my scalp's not going to get sunburned. And you value the dumbest little guns now. Like every little stupid item you pick up, you're like, oh, fuck, I finally got a rifle now. Or like, oh, I got a second pistol now. Great. And it was really interesting, and I wonder if it was a comment also, because this is not an opinion that I share, but I've talked to a lot of people about Red Dead that I'm like, oh yeah, Red Dead's like, oh, it's one of my favorite games. I mean, I hate Mexico, but other than that, and it's like, everybody hates Mexico. Everybody's like, Mexico's so boring. And I just replayed Red Dead up until, I think I played about 80% of the campaign. I didn't finish it. Before I jumped into Red Dead 2, and I went back and replayed Mexico, and like, it's different. It's slow in its own way. There's a lot of knuckleheads in Mexico, but I still like, I'm not going to rant about this,
Landon
but like,
Ricketts is in Mexico.
Landon Ricketts is in Mexico. Like, I still appreciate how unusual it feels to be there because it is not his native country. This is not
Right.
a language that he speaks. You're seeing people being manipulated. Even when you meet like the resistance leader, he's kind of an ass. And so like, I like how you kind of feel he really gets frustrated when he's in Mexico. He's like, somebody help me. I'm not going to do any more missions for you unless you help me. So I wonder
Your
if
loyalties bouncing back and forth in Mexico, and,
Sure.
and that is underrated too.
And they talk about the
Yeah.
last mission you go on with Ricketts. He's
Yeah.
like, you gotta be careful. He's
Yeah.
like, I know you think you can play both sides,
Yeah,
but
you
it's not gonna work
partake
out well
in the
for you.
mission where like they go and kill all the innocents. Like
Yeah.
you're there
on the
part
train
of-
with a Gatling gun. You're
Yeah.
mowing down rebels that whole time. Anyway,
Yeah.
but so I wonder if this island, this jungle, was kind of like their Mexico. They're like,
Sure.
we want to show you, just like you're talking about Boardwalk Empire, like we want to show you the differences in lifestyles in this period of time. That like even Blackwater, like you'll be in Blackwater and you'll see somebody in like his full suit with the tie and his hat, and you're just like, man. The places I've been, the things I've seen that you'll never see. Like this guy can't kill a bear. Like this guy can't.
Yeah.
This guy's never talked to a Native American before. Like this guy couldn't win in a shootout. Like, and so you really see people from different walks of life. And I wonder if that was just them trying to like I really want to put you in a weird spot. So I wonder if they were just looking around and like, ooh, Cuba. Like what if they just go south and they just wind up on some crazy island somewhere? And like, did you care about the revolution? Were you kind of invested in that? I went to go save Javier, and I'm like, I missed the part where Javier got kidnapped. I don't, Like
Yeah.
I was kind of a daze in that section. Like, wow.
Me too. That whole
Chapter
I
5.
think
Everyone was.
yeah. Like that entire part demands to be replayed because it was just a whirlwind of unexpected. It was all unexpected. Yeah, and you just kind of get thrust into it. So there was no real time for me to get attached and to kind of figure out where my allegiances lied or what was happening. It was like, dude, we just got to get out of here and get back.
It's pretty short too.
Yeah.
I think it was also interesting to put right before the ending because obviously you're just, at odds with Micah the entire time. Javier, like, you're friends with, but he's kind of doing his own thing. Bill's just a Brillo pad, like, with legs. And so, like, you do have people that you don't necessarily get along with, but then all of you are thrust into this situation and, like, you kind of have to deal with each other. So it's like there were a couple scenes where they're all together figuring out what they were going to do. And it's like, well, it sucks that we're put in this position, but I do kind of like this camaraderie that I feel, this brotherhood, that they're like, we're the only way we're going to get out of this is if we help each other. And it was interesting, like, revisiting that and watching, like, playing those missions again. But super weird. Super random.
Dude, with that old lady, like, who leads you through the passage, and Dutch just, like, stabs her when she wants her gold. I was like, whoa! Dude. And he's like, Dutch, what the hell's going on? I was like, oh my God.
What the hell, Dutch?
It's so nuts.
Yeah. Out of control.
And we talked
Dude,
about
when Dutch feeds Bronte to the gator too.
Oh my God, yeah.
Everyone's like, whoa.
Yeah, John's like, Jesus.
Yeah.
again, interview with the vampire vibes, man. I saw interview coming up a lot in this game. I mentioned the wheel specifically. That's the mission where you're doing all the farmland steps where you start over with her. And I have seen sentiments from people, and I totally understand that, where they were just like starting over as John, and they're like, what the hell? Like, I'm not into
I totally
this.
get that.
And like, you start off with Abigail with nothing. But for me, like, obviously I have an emotional investment in John, and it was fascinating to just like going through these motions.
Dude, the bank.
I love
going
when
to the bank. Having to go to the bank and get the bank loan was like, this is intense right now.
I like when he gives him the wrong Jim. He's like, I'm Jim, John, and he's like, hi, Jim, John.
Jim John.
Like, I love how smart the farmer is. Like, he knows. He's like, okay, I know you probably have been through stuff, but I trust you and you're good at this, and I can't, as a farm owner in this era, like, pick and choose who I work with or who I deal with. And so, like, he gets it, but like,
I was more afraid of taking a loan out from the bank than facing down like 50 Skinners. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think
that's intentional.
That's like what John feels like.
Yeah.
I love you just bump into Uncle, because I'm like wondering that when we start over. I was like, oh, I wonder how Uncle gets back into it. And he's just like, John. And
John's like, what the hell?
of all the people I was gonna bump into again, like, no.
He won't
what are
leave
you
him
doing in
alone.
Blackwater? Like, But I like the vibe. I mean, Arthur, depending on how you play the game, Arthur sacrifices his life to save John. John never forgets that, even though Arthur's not mentioned in Red Dead, but whatever. And I just like how they demonstrate through missions, through gameplay, how many people were kind to John, thus giving him this opportunity to live his life. How hard it is. Like, you love and I love crime dramas where people are like, I want to get out, Godfather, Sopranos, and it's like, can you ever do the John Wick? Can you do it? Like, can I actually get out? Like, completely just leave this world behind? And John kind of does that. Like, obviously you play Red Dead and that ends a different way. But to me, I appreciated, it was almost like Red Dead was like, okay, we give you a fleeting chance to enjoy your life in Red Dead. Let's show you the best of times. And like Abigail says that. You talked to her a couple times in the homestead, and he's like, what can I get for you, Abigail? And she's like, I have everything I could ever want. This is perfect. And
it was bittersweet. It was like I was enjoying that so much because it was like, this is so nice them being happy. So I'm just going to enjoy this while I can.
Yeah.
And that's like life. There's
I've
good
been
times and
enjoying
bad
that
times.
for as much as I played Arthur. I've been enjoying John. Like, I've literally put in another 60, 80 hours, like, just running around doing dumb stuff.
Like, where it's going.
I wear totally different outfits now. I use different weapons. Like a whole different character in my head.
It's like 2 games in 1.
And so it's just interesting that he's got Arthur to thank. He's got this farmer to thank. It's a bummer you can't go back. It's a bummer that guy's not, of course, Charles and Sadie.
Yeah.
Sadie.
God, when they stabbed Sadie, I was like, no.
Yeah, I was like,
say no. She makes it out. Like,
Yeah.
oh, thank God. The wedding and seeing all that stuff in the credits. And I felt bad. I think I mentioned on one stream, I was like, make sure you watch the credits. And like somebody's like, spoilers. And I'm like, it's not. Like, you have, please. Like, because I didn't. I was like, oh, I beat the game finally. And then I went back through to get music. And I was
We live in
looking
a
at some of
Marvel
the-
Cinematic
you
Universe
gotta watch
world,
those credits.
Jones.
I know. But because they do show a lot of stuff that doesn't mean anything. You just see kind of slice of life stuff, and then every now and then it's like, oh, here's this character, and here's this. We'll get to some of that stuff coming up, but so yeah, I just like that feeling of like, oh, it just makes that homestead feel so great and earned and special, and you know, you even like go away to do something and come back, and Charles is like, oh yeah, I built your silo. And you're like, thanks, man.
Yeah.
You built the barn. Like, whoa, dude. Thanks a lot. And Huber's reading into that way too much, but when he like opens up the catalog and is like, I'll take that house. Huber's like, there are other houses in there.
Online.
You know, like
that
I wonder if
stuff.
you're gonna get your own little,
Dude.
Yeah,
your own
from
little
that guy.
homestead or
Yeah.
something.
For sure.
We're gonna be.
So yeah, lots of other missions we can talk about. This spoiler mode has already gone on for a considerable amount of time. But two other things I want to talk about, just random events. We can talk about, but people we bump into. There's specifically three strangers that stuck out for me. We talked about the I hesitate to call them freaks. That's what we were called at the time. But like the carnival, the circus performers
Got it.
that are in their own little band. But then there's also the animals. Did
Yeah.
you do that? You bump
Oh,
into the
you
guy
have to
that the
go-
circus train that fell
Yeah.
over, and he's like, "Oh, go get the lion."
Oh yeah, it's
and
like
it's the dog, or whatever.
And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, a cat will just be like a cat, and it's
Yeah.
an actual tiger, and you're like, oh, okay. Whoops.
you like get to the farm, and they're like, no.
Yeah, and he's like, what the hell? You got a damn
He's
tiger?
like, no, it's just a dog. He's like, that ain't like no dog I've ever seen. You know, and like.
So good.
It was it's a bummer. Like I actually tried to like lasso it. I was like, oh, I wonder if I can save it. You know, and then he bum rush. You have to kill it. Like
Yeah.
they start you with the gun. But
Good
and
on
it's
you, dude.
and
Trying
it's
to
impressive.
lasso
Yeah,
it.
and it's impressive. If you know that they modeled this whole animal and give it an animation routine and stuff, and it's like that's it. That's the only
Yeah.
thing that you do in this entire game with that animal. It would have been fun to actually see it run around that barn.
Yeah.
Like if you actually have to go out into the fields
Yeah.
and people are like in a carriage nearby, like, what
is that?
carriage. Maybe online. Maybe there's the lion gets
Dude,
loose
let
mission.
me be like a circus performer
Oh my
online.
God.
Please.
The KKK. And then that
Oh
was
my God, yeah.
another thing I
So
really wanted to show in the trailer, but I'm like, this was too good. And I don't know what you did. I saw somebody posted a clip on Twitter where they chucked a piece of dynamite and blew like all the guys apart. But and there's three of them. I don't know if you've got the third. The third one was
I only got
kinda,
two.
Yeah, I got two, and then the third one I got in post game with John. But the first one I went up, I just watched everybody get taken out.
Me too, yeah.
And then the Grand Dragon was like, "Oh, come on!" And he's walking around, and I just hog tie him, loot him, leave him there. And then the second time they come up, there's less guys. Like the
cross falls
cross
on him.
crushes him, and he's like, "Not again!" And I like
thanks for
hog
your
tie him,
help, or
loot him,
some-
leave
yeah.
him there, like walk away.
Oh, I went with the.
But I
melee
wonder if
kills.
you kill him the first time, does he come back? Did you get the second one?
I only got one.
Okay, yeah. So if you kill him, done.
Yeah,
it's
No
probably
way.
You took him out.
I killed as soon as I saw the KKK. I was like, "You are all dead immediately." Went shotgun and knife for the most impact.
But what I mean, yeah, talk about impact. Just seeing, just like, oh, is that a campfire up there? I'm just like, oh, those people are carrying torch. Oh my god.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, whoa.
Oh, Rockstar. Oh man. And then the third time, the Grand Dragon's not even there, and it's just like three guys. And he's like, I thought you said more people be here. And he's like, no. And they already got the cross up, and then lights one guy and fire again, and then
It's
the two other
so
guys
funny.
go.
Dude, the knife kills.
But all sorts of people you jump into, but just yeah, that was a decision. I wonder if like internally they were like, should we? Yeah, why not?
Dude, I had a stranger mission where the person was like held in the store, in the basement of the store. Did you guys find this one?
Oh
I don't know. I don't remember.
You're like walking in town, and then someone's like, "Hey, get me out of here!" And they're like in the basement of the general
I don't think
store.
I did that one.
And
No.
the guy was like keeping him captive down there. It was out of control.
There's a lot of freaky stuff. Apparently, there's an upstairs bedroom you can go into in Annisburg. You gotta like, they have those little tiny houses. You gotta like parkour on the houses to like get into this room, and it's like, I'm not even gonna say, but I saw a picture of it. Like, whoa! Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff. There's the serial killer.
Yep, I only found like two.
Yeah, I only found two as well.
Yeah.
So again, it's
So
like I'm
much.
sure I could go in and examine that stuff further, and I'm sure there's people watching this that have finished that as
Oh
well.
yeah, all that stuff.
But yeah, lots of other just random stuff to find. I loved that the all of the bounties were very different.
Yeah.
And like in the first game, if you haven't played it, like it's real simple. You just go. They have a gang. You can kill the gang if you want, or just kill the guy and take a photo of him, or like I don't know. Do you take a photo of him? I think you just like take a piece of his clothing or something, or like an article off of him. I don't think there's cameras in the first game, but. And then you got to ride him back to town, and then whether you have his body or whether he's alive, you'll get bum rushed by the gang as you try to go back to town. Hyper fast, like they'll just come in like 80 miles an hour on a horse, like oh, and And I like that in this game, like every single one was different. I don't know if you guys did the one where the guy just gave up. Where you like walk in, he's talking to his kid, and he's like, "Come on, fire that gun!" Or he's like trying to get his kid to do something, and the kid can't do it.
No, I didn't
And
see
I
that
was
one.
like, I like automatically stealthed in because I'm like every bounty I'm going in with my gun out, like stealthed, and I'm like, should I just scare him and his family? And I pop out, and he's like, "Oh," and his wife is like surprised, and his kid's like, "No, you're not taking my dad." And he's like, "It's okay, it's okay." And he like pushes his kid aside, and he's like, "I'm ready." And he's like, "No, you remember what I told you?" He's like, "I knew they were coming for me." And he's like, "Remember what I told you? That's why I'm yelling at this kid, because you need to be the man of the house now." And he goes to you and is like, "All right, tie me up." And so I like hogtied him and put him on the back of the horse, and we're riding back, and he like doesn't talk. And then finally Arthur's like, how you doing back there?" And he's like, "I'm all right." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just used to people complaining by this point." And he's like, "No," he's like, "I did this crime." And then he like wiggles out of the ropes and runs. And you're like, "No, get back here." Sucker.
That's
And I love that you can like
incredible.
hit people. I never hit anybody
Oh,
until
I hit so many people.
the only person I hit was we say Tilly was the Tilly mission where you go and rescue her.
Oh, right.
And you ride him back, and he's like, "Now Tilly was lying." I'm like, "You shut up."
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't wait to play my bad boy playthrough. I will hit everybody, repeatedly. But yeah, just as far as strangers, just random things you saw by the road. Obviously, the guy who gets kicked in the head by his horse is pretty funny.
The two, I was bummed. That was the only bug I really encountered. The two prisoners that come out of the
Right,
woods.
yeah.
They want you to. They want you
Shoot
to.
their locks off or something.
They want you to take down the wanted posters in town.
Oh, right.
And I took all the wanted posters down, and then I was supposed to go back to them. Never found them again. They
didn't
were
pop
just
up?
gone. Looked everywhere. Went to the smokestacks in the woods. Was looking everywhere for like
I
an
got
hour.
that twice actually. So I did that mission as Arthur, and then they didn't come up again while I was doing my Arthur playthrough. And then that same mission popped up as John.
Yeah.
And it was fun because I got to see like a literal example of the differences between their dialogue. And so John's like saying most of the same things that Arthur said, but he bumps into them. And then yeah, there's like 3 other times you bump into them. They're like an ongoing joke.
Damn it.
So yeah. Bugs here. Any other bugs of note before we get into
Not really. I can't think of like a bug where I was like,
horses would load onto people sometimes? Like one like horse
Oh,
was
I
like
saw, like,
perpendicular
yeah.
to horses in a wagon. So
Yeah.
there's like 2 horses in front of a wagon and then a horse like crossing them like inside of them.
Yeah.
And a guy was standing on it looking at me, and I like went up to him and he's like, "What are you looking at?" I'm like. And then finally the wagon was just like, "We're gonna go," and they just ran
Yeah.
over the guy and like.
I parked my horse in Saint Denis, and like I went and there's a cutscene, and they walked out and they walked through my horse in the cutscene. I was like, well, I get it because like
Yeah.
they're not gonna move for the horse, but it's just weird.
We fun pickup again, more review behind the scenes lore. The one shot I didn't have was being far away from the horse. So I'm like, if you're far away from the horse, you gotta command it. And I like loaded an old save. I had a gnarly mustache as Arthur at the end of the game that you don't see in the review, unfortunately, because it was all the spoilery stuff. But if you look carefully in that shot, you can see his mustache. And I think he had TB at the no, this was before that. And so I'm like, oh, I'll go up to the like horse area in the camp and then just load up the screen that shows my horses that I can do that. So I just got a quick pickup and then posted that, and Blood watched the review and he's like, "Your horse is standing on the wagon." I'm like, "What?" And I go back and looked at the clip, and the horse was just like, I'm like, "Damn it!" So I got it again to like get a clean shot.
That's so funny.
2 questions for you guys. One, what did you name your horse?
So I've had 3 horses.
Okay.
The first one name is Walter, and it was a girl. I was like, oh man. After I named it. Second one, I bought the Arabian,
Nice.
named it Donkey Kong.
Nice.
Rode it. I had it
Two
for
words? Can you do 2 words for the horse name?
I can't remember. I think
Okay.
so. I rode it for like 20 minutes, and I rode off a cliff on accident, and it died. And I was like, all right, okay, let me just revive it at least. Then I got attacked by a wolf as I was trying to revive it, and the wolf killed me. And I was like, no, I lost my horse, dude. So then I bought another horse.
Not Donkey Kong.
Yeah, and I named it DK Jr.
You're good, man.
I never lost. I think a horse died in a mission one time, but I just restarted it. My horse did get knocked out one time. I didn't even know horse revitalizer was a thing, and I was just outside of Valentine, and it was like, you can revive with a horse thing, and I'm like, ah! So I like ran into town and bought it, and I'm like running back to the horse, like, and he's just like whimpering. Like, okay, he's fine.
man.
But I was for sure, I'm like, no, he's gonna be dead when I get back to him. Damn it. First horse I named was Abe, after Abraham Lincoln. The second one that I had for like a hot second. When you go buy the horse, I had no money, so I had to buy this like super tiny, crappy horse.
Yeah.
And so like I had Abe, but I was like, I'm not really like into this horse. And then there was the horse that you could bring back to the guy, but I couldn't find the guy. You like steal it. And I like went back in town, and I'm like, is someone gonna be like, that's my horse? And nobody said anything, so I was like, well, my horse now. And that had kind of like a powdered sugar top to it, so I named it Snowy. And then got a horse that I thought was jet black, but it was not. I named it Knight after Knight Rider. And then my last one,
So many
I
horses.
can't remember. I had a last horse named Pepper that was almost identical to Charles's horse that was white with black spots.
Before I named my horse, I ran into like 4 trees head on.
You have, dude, I hit so many trees in this game.
So I named mine Sleeper.
Oh no.
Had it like the entire game, and then remember I did the Herschel.
Right. Yeah.
Swapped horses. Didn't even get to name it.
Right.
That one died. Sleeper. lived.
Is John's horse named Rachel like in lore? Is your horse Rachel now or in the
I think it was in lore.
Because he starts with a horse and named it Rachel, and I was like, it's already named Rachel, and I'm like, why don't I get another horse if this is your horse, man?
Yeah.
And like I got a couple. I have that horse because I didn't finish that line until John, so I like kept
horse.
it and put it. Yeah, I put it in the stables. Like, oh, I'll keep that one.
And then one last question for you guys. Need to know your thoughts. Need to dive deep into your emotions. Okay, give me your raw emotions when you first got to Saint Denis. For the reveal of Saint Denis, right? The very first time you got to that city, what was going through your head? How'd you feel?
I was like, oh, this is very different and big.
Yeah.
Because I came in and I think it was like nighttime when I came or something like that. And it was all foggy out. And I was like, whoa, I haven't seen anything like this in the game yet.
Yeah.
Blew me away.
Yeah.
Because like, there's nothing like that in the game. Because I remember from one, I think Blackwater was like the most advanced kind of town.
Yeah.
But when I saw this town, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm just in Louisiana right
All
now.
the lights.
I had no idea.
Trolley
and the
car.
guy, I don't know if you brought the guy to the doctor. If you did that, stranger. The guy's by the side of the road, his arm's all messed up, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Can you help me?" And
Yes.
you bring him into town. That was my introduction to Saint Denis. So I'm like riding by the area, and he's like, I need help." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll help you." And he's like, "Take me to Saint Denis." I'm like, "Where?" And the red line just went into, no man's land. And I'm like, okay, I'll just take you into this weird Saint Denis town. And I'm riding it like, what the hell? And I think it was at like sunrise or sunsets was really foggy. And it, like the city just came out of the mist. I was like, whoa. Yeah, really particular vibes in that town. That town at night. Oh,
Legendary.
so
difference.
good.
That's one of my favorite towns in video game history by far.
Really,
All
really
the-
nice. Totally different vibes. Love the kids. So
all
you
the
get that
s-
kind of like
yes.
that little Oliver vibe.
Yes.
Like
Kids,
yes.
we're a little gang of kids that's there. I love the
The theater there, all the sub stories.
the museum when you have that one mission where all the people like beat each other up. You're like, that's my wife. Like, did you do
Yeah,
that
the
one?
paintings. Yeah, the stranger mission. Yeah,
The
it's so funny.
the public execution.
Oh.
that whole thing.
With O'Driscoll?
Yeah, dude.
Oh my god.
But dude,
I love
talking
that.
about details,
The
I don't know if you
electric chair?
I don't know if you picked this up. Yeah.
Insane.
Wait, there's an electric chair?
Yeah.
dude, you
I
do-
didn't see an electric chair.
Dude, you do a mission for this guy because he like he's like, yeah, I got a new way to kill people in a humane way.
Painless, humane way.
Painless, humane way. And you're like doing these missions for him, and then you like make a deal with the police chief, and you like kind of bribe him. You're like, yo, I need to, we need to try this. And it's like a legit public execution.
God.
They put him in a wheelchair, and the dude like doesn't die. He's
Oh
just
my
like,
God.
nah.
I didn't see
He's like burning alive.
Oh my
People are like, I thought this was
And
humane.
the guy's like, no, he's like, see, it's perfectly humane.
Yeah.
He's like got a stick in his mouth. It's like, he's if you want to do it, he's north. He's in the far northeast side of Saint Denis. He's like along the coast.
Okay.
So when you go north of Saint Denis and it stops being buildings and there's like a couple shacks.
Yeah.
He's in one of those.
Okay.
It's insane, dude.
But yeah, but a good point of like a classic GTA 5 wacky character, but he wasn't that wacky. Like he was still kind of grounded. Like he's still, it was still the kind of sense that I was like, there are people like this. I totally buy that whoever invented it. I wonder if it's the same guy. I wonder if they grabbed his name. But yeah, that was out of control. But you bring up executions, man, and when you bring in bounties, they are executed. So they will stay in that prison and they will execute them publicly. So I was in Blackwater. And they were like, this man, they were like, had some on the gallows. And I was like, oh, do an execution. It's like, wait, I know that guy. Like,
Yeah.
that's the guy. I brought him in.
Jones, is that gonna happen online? If you do so many bad things and a bounty,
Execute plan.
no, honestly, dude,
so cool.
if they capture you, if they hog, if a bounty, if you're,
Yeah.
and it'd be a way to make sure it's not
I
just
can't-
complete chaos.
Quiet. Hush. But I was also, again, I don't know if there was a through line to this moment, but there was one moment where I was exiting Rhodes, and they have that the church there that has the graveyard around it, and there was a funeral, and there was a hole that was buried, and they were burying a guy, but it was just the priest.
I remember this.
And no one was at it, and it was just the priest by himself, and he was basically saying, like, what can you say about a man who has fallen this far? It's like, surely all of God's children deserve a chance at redemption and all this stuff. And like, no one was there. So it's like very Eleanor Rigby style of like the role of this minister to represent this passing before God. But, he had no friends, so no one's going to show up. And certainly the gang's not going to show up in Rhodes to do it. And I was like, I wonder if this is just a thing or if that's one of the guys that I saw get executed a couple days ago. Crazy. All those details.
Insane.
So I've asked our Patreon community
Nice.
to ask us questions. I posted this minutes before you walked into the door and we recorded this, and I have 66 questions.
Wow.
So we're going to go through this as quickly as possible. I want rapid fire answers from
Okay,
these.
rapid fire, not lingering.
Jared Wyke, I want to hear about your favorite camp gang members and your favorite characters from Stranger Side missions. I loved Sadie and Charles. I tried to make Karen my friend. She was not having it.
Yeah.
Every time I had a chance, I was like, hi, Karen. And she was like, whatever, Arthur. I'm like, man.
Charles and Lenny, highlights for sure. 100%.
Yeah, Lenny was a highlight.
Yeah.
Sadie, I think was the most highlight for me.
Sadie and Tilly as well. Love
I also
Tilly.
love-
not enough Tilly, but like
Yeah.
the little bit she was in.
Tilly
Yeah.
was good.
Loved it.
Also, I mean, obviously, really tragic seeing all of your friends die, but I like how kind of unceremoniously and
They
horrible
should be.
Hosea and Lenny
And Sean just get shot, yeah.
It just boom, it happens.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
it's like
That's it.
I like the realness of that. Where you're like, oh, come on, like I wanted everybody should go out like John. Everybody should get this last shootout, and it's like it's
Not
the
everyone
life we
does,
picked,
yeah.
man. Like, sorry, and it's interesting playing it again now and hearing Dutch at the beginning being like, we lost Mark or Mike or something. You
Couple
lose
of
somebody at
the
the beginning,
yeah.
you don't even see.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they just kind of talk about him. He's even mentioned in the journal. If you go back to like the first page,
Well, they talk
Arthur
about
talks
a couple
him.
people, like some
Yeah.
twins, I think they talk about or
And
something.
Dutch is like, never again. And it's like, well, sorry, buddy. Which chapter, including the epilogues, did you each enjoy the most, and what were some standout moments that made the case? We don't have to go through all the stuff that we were talking about again, but going back again now, I think chapter 3 I'm gonna like soak in. I think I'm gonna hit 3 and just.
Wait, I don't
Three's the
remember
long-
I don't remember which happens. in
three's
three.
the
2's outside of
longest.
Valentine, 3's outside of Rhodes.
Oh, okay. with,
4
like, the
is
families?
4 is the house.
Okay.
5 is in the jungle, and then 6 is a bunch of places. You go back to the house, and then you're in the bayou, and then you go up by the caves.
3's the meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
Lock goes down.
Yeah,
in
for
3.
sure. But like the island stands out to me as a moment, just because it's so different.
That was from Barry Bumfroyd. Lincoln Race, go-to weapon loadouts. I love this. At the end, I got my Litchfield repeater and the pump action, baby.
Pump action.
Pump
baby.
action
I think-
shotgun, the Litchfield repeater,
Yep.
and I like the 2 Han Solo looking guns.
Sure, yeah.
I think they're German
German
models.
ones, yeah.
Oh, dude,
I
I
like
went.
those.
I went Unforgiven, Schofield, but I also liked having a Schofield and a double action pistol. I wanted 2 different pistols. Never messed around with the volcanic pistol because it looks dumb. Went purely fashion.
I used some handguns from people I killed from the Gunslinger quests. I don't remember exactly which ones, but I used the pump the whole game after you
Pump,
told me about
baby.
it, and the bolt action rifle. Yes, love that animation, dude.
Yeah.
Hassan Mahmoud, I know the other allies haven't finished it yet, but any idea what their opinion on the game is and if they're liking it as much as you? I know Ian is very frustrated with the controls, and I know Ben felt the beginning was really slow, which it is. Like going back and replaying it again and skipping every single cutscene, it still took me like an hour and a half to just get out of the snow. I was like, oh god.
Bossman, we talked a little bit about it. He likes it, but it's not his taste. He
Sure.
killing people and
Right.
and the old west and that.
Yeah.
He's liking it,
Yeah.
but it's not like
Yeah.
his favorite thing of all time.
Evan Regan, which of you went high honor versus low honor? We've answered that. And what changes, if any, did you notice in the late game as a result? You ended up still high.
Yeah.
You were on the good side, so we
Yeah.
don't know.
Middle
I will let
towards
you know
you.
if I go back and play through, and I'm really curious, actually, if people can respond to that. Thursday King asks, your first encounter with the Murfree Broods? They're the ones outside of Annisburg.
Oh, I told. Is this the people I told you about, like the weird cult thing or whatever?
No,
Or
these
the
are like
body-
these are like backwater.
Yeah, the guy like they had like sacrifices and stuff.
That's the Skinners.
No,
maybe?
no. It's
Okay,
earlier
Murphy's
on.
do
Yeah,
it as
because
well.
you kill them later on. Like
Yeah.
you wipe them out in the cave. Yeah, I stumbled on that cave early on in the game, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. Like who this cult? I was like, is this like a cult or something like that? There's just bodies everywhere. I wiped out their whole cave. And I looted them. I was like, "Whoa, that was sick."
They remind me, you know that spooky X-Files episode with like the grandma that lives under the bed? She's like, you
No.
don't know the pride. Like, it's one of the most disturbing X-Files episodes. I think it's called like The Family or something.
Okay.
But like those are the Murphys basically. But I just had a great one, and it's a great example of I love. It's not only that there's great strangers, but they're not all like, take me back to town. Like, I love the breadth of what you're expected to do in these instances. Like, I was headed right outside my ranch one time. A guy went by, 3 arrows in the back, dead. Horses just kind of trotting down the road. I was like, that's awesome. You know, and it's like, there's nothing I can do. I can't loot. I guess I can loot the guy. But, like, it's, and one of my favorites was, and I actually got this twice, was I was going by and there are a couple Murphys on a wagon, and on the wagon in the back are 2 corpses that are on top of a woman who's screaming like bloody murder, and the Murphys are like, this doesn't concern you, and I'm just like, pop, kill them, go in the back, and I'm like looking to talk to her, like, are you okay? And she just sobs and just goes running off into the woods. And I'm like, bye. Like, I'm not gonna hogtie you for safety, you know, I'm just like, I hope you don't get caught again, but like, I love those moments where they're like, there's nothing you can do. It's just the nature of the Old West. Steve S., do you think we'll get a single-player DLC like Red Dead 1 did? No. Maybe featuring Sadie or Charles? No. Or will they go the GTA 5 route and focus on online?
Yep.
I think there could be DLC. I really
wouldn't.
do.
I think at most, my prediction at most is every time they do a DLC, an online focus update, there'll be a little piece of candy for single player. They'll just put another thing in, or maybe add some more. Like if they add
Like a new thing to do in the
big
world.
boats, or they add like a new mission or a new like vehicle you can use, or a new weapon. Like single player will get.
The
that
question
too,
is
and-
if online will be before or after Red Dead 2, because if it's after, then obviously you can do bounty missions for Sadie. She's a bounty hunter. now. You know, tie that in.
And there are GTA 5 characters in that, so I would not be surprised if Sadie pops up. And another thing that I like about the epilogue is that there's enough time since Arthur's passed that they can lament it, and he doesn't necessarily need to bring it up every 5 seconds, and also enough time before Red Dead 1. So like Jack's older, but he's not as old as he is in the game. And so I think it's just this nice perfect era where you can justify playing the game for, you know, years just following as John, and it still kind of makes sense in that world. Andreas Klinthaus, why is New Austin on the map? Is it just because of nostalgia for all those Red Dead fans, or is it possible DLC or multiplayer integration? Definite nostalgia. I mean, it's John's home. So it would be weird if he was in New Austin. I would have been bummed if I was in New Austin and you like try to get to what's that town? Thieves Landing, and it's just like not there, or there's like an arbitrary like wall there or something.
It's there because of the detail, because of the world they've built, you know, that exists there. Like, some of the plot goes down in there. Obviously, it's going to be used online.
There's still stuff you can do. There's bounties. There's stuff to explore. There's animals that are only there. So if you want to get 100% completion and do all the find all the animals and all that crazy stuff, there's legendary animal. The legendary cougar is only in New Austin. The other thing too is like, you know, the comment says like, is that just for fans? I'm sure that's for Rockstar as well. I'm sure they got a huge kick out of that. You know, thinking like, what would Armadillo be like now? What would Tumbleweed be like now? I could see that being as one point where they were like, okay, stop. I had this idea for a mission. Stop.
Mexico, maybe. It's like, no more. No.
What's something from Red Dead Redemption that you thought would show up in Red Dead Redemption 2 but didn't?
Landon Ricketts.
He's mentioned. A couple people mentioned him, and he's mentioned in writing in a couple places. I think he has his own card too. I don't know. But what's his name? The crazy gravedigger. I thought the guy you pick up from the Driscolls was him. I like looked at his character model. I'm like, is that you? I can't remember his name. I want to say Sean, but Sean's from this.
It begins with an S, maybe, right?
But I thought he would be in it.
I couldn't
because
remember.
he talks about Dutch a little bit. When I went back and played Red Dead 1, I was like, oh, like he mentions a couple of those things.
Oh, and
just those characters.
a
Bonnie,
big one,
like
Heidi McCourt. When you see the Man in Black in 1,
he mentions that.
Like
They do mention her, not by name though.
yeah.
Because you ask when I think when it's with Javier, when you're going to find John, he's like, what happened back in
I thought maybe
Blackwater?
we would see it.
And Javier's like, oh, I don't know, man. I was in this one place. He's like, I was watching you and what you were doing. He's like, Dutch killed some gal in a bad way.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, oh, okay. And it's actually in the journal. If you go look at the first couple pages of the journal, he's like, all hell break loose. Dutch killed some woman for no reason. Yeah. So like they do mention her, but not by name, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Because he asks, you know, of course, John's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
So cool.
Perka Halama, what's your favorite random gray dot on map character encounter? And Billy Ranto after that puts, has anyone seen Gavin?
Oh yeah, that guy's great. The guy the Civil War vet. When you talk to him enough, he eventually tells you he wasn't in the war and stuff like
That's
that.
in Valentine?
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
he,
it's
like,
kinda
eventually
loopy.
meets that when you're like you're like the downest on your luck. You're like, I'm dying to him or stuff like that. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, mister. And he like pours his whole heart out to you like that. I was like, I don't feel good about any of this right now.
Probably the Klan. I think I just got such a kick out of that.
Yeah, that was great.
And especially seeing people later just slaughter all of them, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess you could. I was a
so
fly on the
good.
wall that whole game just to watch that and seeing it from a distance, being like, what is that? Marco Salinas, what do you think the odds are of getting story DLC? Would you rather have it being during the game with Arthur or post game with John? Neither. You're gonna create your own character, right?
Yeah,
So we're not gonna get to play as either of them. Maybe there'll be like an Arthur skin or a John skin or
online?
something, or outfits or
probably
something.
like
yeah.
their clothes you could
Yeah, you
probably
can
get.
probably make your own guy. So yeah, any DLC comments we're probably just gonna breeze past. Lost Rob, what's your favorite location that you found that had a story told through notes and visual effect? Mine was the suicide cult that was in a random cabin in the woods, where by reading the crazy prayer you find out what the heck happened. Thanks, Lost Rob.
I didn't find that.
There was one town I went into that had a letter, and I was standing right over two corpses and didn't realize it, and I just picked up the letter, and it was like, I'm gonna go. If I'm not back in 3 days, go to your aunt's, tell her what happened, and then I didn't come back. I love you, Mom. And I was like, oh, crazy. And I looked down, and there's 2 dead kids, just like on the bed.
Oh my god.
God.
Jeez.
God.
Jeez.
All right, moving on.
I can't think of anything right now.
Eugene Ambers, was it just me, or did Arthur's death feel a little downplayed? Like, oh, he's dead now. I mean, guess play more of the game. I mean, they talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
Like everyone
There's
that
such a build-up to it.
everyone that John mentions,
It's a
in the
slow
end, he's
death.
like, Arthur saved my life. I don't know if he says it to Pearson when you see him. He's like, I don't know if you know this
the
because
game,
you
yeah.
left earlier, but like, you saved my life.
And he thinks about him too, like when he's like working, like he has like memories of him
Yeah.
and stuff like that. He doesn't like talk about him that much, but he thinks about him.
but at the same
and it's
time,
it's a
yeah,
connection to the way the game handles death at all. We just talked about Lenny and
Yeah,
Sean,
it's the
and then it's just
lifestyle
like,
they
boom.
picked.
Yeah.
You know, no one will remember you. No one will care.
That's why
you know, like-
when he got TB, I was like, honestly, the first thing I thought was, oh, well, this is good. Now I can have the like slow emotional death in bed, you know, drifting off.
Right.
You know, of course, you're not in bed, you're on a rock, but you know, you're overlooking the sunset.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, he's getting that death as soon as you get TB. It's like, okay, I see what you're doing here.
Sergey P, hopefully spoiler unrelated questions are okay. What did you guys think of gunplay? I personally think GTA 5's gunplay, weapon sounds, overall feel of everything shooting related is terrible, but I absolutely love gunplay in Max Payne 3, and to me it feels like Red Dead Redemption 2 is much more like Max Payne 3 in that regard, which is fantastic. I will only allow Michael Huber to answer this question very quickly.
The hip fire with the repeater is one of the best feeling things in video games.
Boom.
It feels so good.
And I've never had a complaint about any Rockstar game, even GTA 3, when you're just like, "Wah!" like wobbly, like I got used to it. I don't know.
Also, Brad agrees. Headshots with the shotgun. Oof.
The first time unintentional, but I just like opened a door and a guy was right there, and I was like, sorry. Like I normally am not this gruesome, but
Yeah.
Weren't enough Tombstone OK Corral glass shattering though. Do you remember Doc Holliday when he's like, you know, and the glass is flying? Could have gone for more shattered glass in the game.
there's a random tree that has bottles all over it that I just found. Like there's
Just, like,
50
shooting the
bottles
bottles.
hanging, and I was like, oh.
Awesome.
Billy Ranto, do you think Arthur Morgan is Rockstar's best main character yet? I'd give him that title. I think maybe best realized, most realized. It's hard. It's like I could see
Nico Bellic.
you know, and you love Vice City too. Like I could see that character being incredible if you really got into him and really gave him all the choice.
It's between
all that
Arthur and
stuff,
Nico
so.
for me.
G Fox, did it bother you that the game was slow at the beginning, or do you expected it to start like that? I personally loved the progression of the story and how with Dutch slowly losing control of the gang. Yeah, I think the opening is the kind of thing where you hate it while you're in it and you appreciate it when you're done.
Yeah, I
think
mean,
it's
it
not-
didn't bug me when I was doing it. I was totally in for the slow burn. I was like, okay, Rockstar, here we go. We're going to go on this real slow.
Yeah.
I'm sure it did. But yeah, most people would probably hate that.
And it makes it really profound when you finally comment. He's like, "Oh, it feels good to be out of the snow." When you finally get out, when you're robbing
Yeah, it feels
the
like
train,
relief.
and then when like you make that caravan, it's like, oh, and you finally get to this new place. Like, let's never leave here.
Well, I was
This
just
is
thinking-
really great.
I was just thinking of people who play Elder Scrolls, and you like play Elder Scrolls, you're like, just go wherever right off the bat, pretty
Yeah.
much. And this, it's like, no.
Yeah.
We're taking our time, like hours to get to do that.
It always cracked me up when like new Harry Potter books would come out, and like some of Aaron's friends were like, "Done."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're like, "Wait, what? It came out yesterday," and they're like, "Done. I can't wait for the next one." You're like, "All right." Mintry Duck Lu, a lot of complaints about the games are about the role-playing simulations aspect of it, like cleaning your guns and taking baths. Did any of these end up changing how you would have played? For example, did you view your horse differently in weapons and how you took care, how you took care of yourself? Did it help you feel more immersed in the world? One thing I didn't know until like a day ago was that if you go into Eagle Eye, that trail behind you is your smell. So you can judge like how stinky you are
That's funny.
by that trail.
I
And
bathed.
obviously, if you take a bath, it goes away.
Didn't really feel like it mattered that much to me, like bathing. I bathed once. I cut my hair though and stuff like
Really?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If my clothes were like bloody, I'd change it, but that's about it.
I bathe all the time.
Yeah.
I love Strawberry. It has this kind of like Idlewild. There's this great town in California called Idlewild that like reminds me a lot of Strawberry. It's like up in the woods and very like not posh, but like a lot of people go there to vacation. And yeah, anytime I stopped at Strawberry, it's like, well, I might as well, you know, like I'll
But
get a
it's like
bath.
no
And I
one
love I
reacted.
RP as John because when the lady's like, you need some help, and John's like, I'm married, I can't. No thanks, man.
I think if people reacted to your stink, I would have done it
I've
more.
seen people do it in like gameplay Rockstar's released.
Yeah, I think it takes a while.
I think
It
one way you
must
can
take a while.
I think one way you can definitely do it is like go hunt a ton of stuff, like skin a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
Specifically birds because like or like smaller things because or like ducks. Ducks are brutal. You can like crack
Yeah.
them open and he'll take the heart out and put it on a thing and his hands all bloody after that. And then
Sure.
just like go to Saint Denis and just walk around. And people are like, ah, like when you get close to him. I wonder if you get like don't bathe the entire game, get a bunch of blood on you, like skin something and put it on both shoulders and just
Yeah.
like get all dirtied up
That's
and then like
true,
go see
yeah.
a play. Like sit down. I wonder if people
Hey,
next to you are like
how's it going?
freaking out. But yeah, I loved all that stuff. I love the gun flipping it, zooming in, looking down the barrel. I'm
Cleaning it, yeah.
sucker for all of that stuff.
Me too. It definitely made the game way better for me.
Dean Folletti Velasco, what were some bad decisions the game forced you to make that really lingered with you? I'm conflicted with your vision of the character. Oh, that conflicted with your vision of the character. Robbing the drunken catfish Jackson and finding the letter from his estranged wife to his son that the game wouldn't let you give to the boy killed me. That's a letter in my inventory laying out that the kid's mother loves him and that he can have a better life, and I just walk away. I mean, we kind of talked about that, wanting to give money to people.
Yeah,
and
the
you're a
Strauss
bit.
decision,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I want to be loyal to the gang, but I also want to not take money from these people that need it. So that was upsetting.
Jonas Secula, I got horses, good horses. Spend time and money on bonding and all that through the game, and then Arthur takes my favorite personal horse companion with him to the grave. My girlfriend heard my cry, but I assured her that surely Rockstar wouldn't just take my horses. Finished the epilogue, still haven't gotten them back. Thoughts? It hurts.
It hurts.
It hurts, man.
It hurts.
You are
It was
not
a party.
that man.
It was a bond with him and his horse,
Yeah.
man. And I was like, oh.
He died.
Yeah,
I think
that's it.
I think it plays up into the whole loss of losing Arthur, but I appreciate that you're frustrated.
Yeah.
Shubankar Parijat, hi allies. What are your thoughts on how you feel overall about the quality of side content in this game? Above and beyond. I feel like this game had some really, really, really amazing side content, and some of the side quests were written well enough to be considered at least close to the same level as something like The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Even though the quest design itself or the way the missions were set up could have been quite generic, I feel the writing was always strong enough for the quest lines always revolved around some incredible characters for them to be able to stand out. For example, I felt the characters like Charlotte, the widow, the artist in Saint-Denis, Edith Downs, and Hamish Sinclair were all stars of some of the best quests of the entire game, optional or not. We've talked about a lot of these people.
Yeah.
Again, just that weird side thing that I found and the line that John said back to him in post game, just like God above and beyond, like all those crazy details.
Yeah.
Eric Jackson, what thing frustrated you the most about Red Dead Redemption 2? Not getting online right away. Hungry for online.
Frustrated. Yeah, just
Having to beat it in 6 days.
for me, honestly, it was just the morality system not having the ultimate payoff that I was hoping for and expecting.
Some of the controls frustrated me. Like sometimes I'd try to switch out a gun and it like wouldn't do it fast or anything like that, or I'd just kind of like try to get cover and it'd be like on an angle I wouldn't want him on. I get shot. I was like, damn.
I love Ian's complaining to me about controls. And I'm just like, oh, come on, Ian, get good. And then like the next day, I was getting on my horse and like grabbed a lady and like pinned her to the ground. And I was like, no. And so I hit the circle button because that's like the generic back out of
Nice.
something in video games. And it's punch. And I'm like, no. I'm like, what are you gonna do? Kerbu, what's the group's take on there being zero interplay between the gameplay systems, camp upgrades, morality, well-being, and how missions play out? I never expected wildly different story outcomes due to them, but more voiced acknowledgments and changes to mission structure because morale is high. You bought camp upgrades, would have been nice. Red Dead story structure having zero connection to its gameplay decisions and open world systems and structure was more disappointing this time around when I compare it to the rest, where the rest of the industry is at. I think that's one of the issues that Red Dead has because they talk about these systems up so much that I think people get in their mind about like how it should work.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you were disappointed with the morality system and how it played out, but Rockstar's never really made a precedent for doing that before. So it's not like based on what I expect you to do. It's
But
like,
it's based on what they're teaching me in the game.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah.
And within this game, they hype up the morality
Yeah,
system.
like I just gave up on giving the camp stuff. I'm like, oh, this doesn't even matter.
Oh,
not
dude,
gonna
I
affect
kept my camp going
I
the
did a ton of stuff.
entire...
I bought all the things.
I was just like, this
kept
isn't
hunting.
doing anything.
Was it like... I admittedly need to replay it again and see what happens if you don't do a single thing and it's all red all the time.
Someone's like they probably say it's like a few grouchy things to you.
Yeah.
but it doesn't
Hungry or-
affect
yeah.
anything really in the overall grand
too
scheme.
Yeah.
Which I wish it did. Yeah.
What
Yeah,
the heck?
but I mean, again, I always try to look at like the other side of this. It's like, what if it did and it took things away? So you were like, we were talking about missions. You're like, well, I didn't do that mission. It's like, well, your camp hated you, and you're like, well, what the hell, Rockstar? I want to do that mission. It's like, I could see the kind of a
Like,
double-edged sword.
I would
It's
love
like,
that.
like,
Because
if,
some
like,
of the
I would-
missions are time-based.
I would love it too, but yeah,
I wish you guys just got like a reward or something for doing it. Like, hey man, we really appreciate all the effort you put in. Me and the boys got you something like that. I don't know. Yeah. Or something like that.
We got you something, Arthur.
Yeah.
Megan Leinart, hey guys, I found the ending to not be surprising at all. Do you feel disappointed at the end when Arthur died and John just took over like how the original game ended? I guess I understand why they had to kill this character due to him not being in the original game, but I was expecting that. Could they have done it another way that was less predictable? I think it was fine. You kind of knew.
I mean,
I think they
expect him to
set
get
it up at the
TB.
beginning. You know, when Abigail comes in and she's like, "I thought you'd be dead," and he's like, well, "Stick around soon enough, lady, and you'll see that." And like, this is your son, Jack. Jack wanted to see you. He wants to make sure you're okay. And they just clearly set up like it's about this family now.
Yeah.
Like it was about John before. Now you know Abigail and you know Jack. Now they're a unit. You can see how they grow. When you take Jack fishing, she's like, John never spends time with them. They fish later on. Like I just thought there were a lot of great parallels. And yeah, I don't think Rockstar had the mindset going into this that they're like, people are going to be shocked when you become John. I think they realized they weren't, and so they're like, how can we really dig deep? I
mean, it's
they're
like
slow
what if you're
down.
like on a farm? What if it really takes a while?
It's like
for
Star
him
Wars
to, like,
prequels. Like, you know
build
how
up?
it's going to end.
Right.
We saw it coming.
Paul Meekin, how do y'all feel about the epilogue? We've talked about it. 2, how do you have a rocket ship time capsule? Do you send this game, The Witcher 3, to space for eternity, and why?
Both? Is
Yeah,
it
why not both? Both.
both?
And
You know how I roll.
I would, yeah. Huber would send Witcher. I would send Red Dead. 3, did the lack of liar's dice greatly impact your enjoyment of the game, as it should have? I don't know if it was you, Paul, but somebody reached out to me like while I was previewing. They're like, "Where the hell's liar's dice?" And I was like, "Oh, it's not. I don't think it's in there, man."
All nine.
There were a bunch of new games, but yeah.
Oh, I did the finger one.
Oh, hell yeah.
Filet.
I love that. Yeah.
I love that like new dudes come in.
And they're like,
It's like a new guy comes up, I'm gonna beat you this time. You're like, whoa, they get progressively scarier looking.
I played so much poker and blackjack, and it was so much better in this game than in Red Dead 1 because Red Dead 1 is choppy. It's very choppy in its
Oh.
delivery of like, skip to the hand. They're like
It's much
fades
more like fluid and natural.
way more
now.
fluid and natural. And just playing so much of that alleviated the lack of liar's dice.
If the online portion of Red Dead Redemption 2 was used to evaluate the game, why wouldn't Red Dead Redemption 2's online portion be considered while determining the game of the year? It will be.
It
Yeah,
will be
it will
when
be.
we discuss 100%.
Yeah.
1,000,000%.
Yeah,
If
for sure it will
it's-
be.
If it's good or bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to come out and we got to play it. So, like, hopefully it comes out
Does it,
before January. I'm sure it will.
It's going to be a beta. Does that count? That's a whole nother discussion.
We have no idea. We can't speak about something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
John Bargum, the first gameplay trailer shows Arthur in jail. Dutch then blows a hole in the wall to free Arthur. I never saw that scene in the game. Did any of you? Could it have been cut from the game or could it have been Red Dead Redemption Online? Maybe Red Dead Redemption Online is set pre-Blackwater. Kerbu jumps in the comments with this. That can happen. Sometimes when you're in jail, they'll break you out.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep. You can also bump. This never really happened, but PR said it does. That like you'll see people in camp, but you'll also see people in the world. So you can like go into a bar and like Javier's just there. And they said one PR, the Gallup PR for Rockstar was like, I got in a fight one time in a town and like Javier joined me. He was like, hey, get away from him. Like came up and started like fighting as well.
That's
So
cool.
that's what I heard. Sick. But another thing that I wanted to bring up that I think is fascinating, if you go back and look at the trailers now, there's a lot of trailers where people are like bruised and hurt that they like corrected it. So like the line where Micah's like, sometimes brothers make mistakes. Like that's after you rescue him and he's like all banged up. And like there were a lot of scenes where a character said something that like the background was totally different. I think there's a when Mary, your girlfriend, is getting on the train. She's like, "You'll never change. I know that." And she's like getting on the train. And I think for the trailer, they're like, "Well, we don't want to," you're gonna assume like, "Oh, I leave her eventually." So she's just like on a plantation when she says it in the trailer.
Got it.
So yeah, fun little details there. Jeffrey Moore. RDR2 creates one of the most realized, detailed, and realistic open worlds ever made. Its cast of characters is broad, unique, and brimming with personality. Its story is intricate, detailed, and intriguing. However, it is all hampered by awkward controls, tedious tasks, and an archaic mission structure that will have you fail at the slightest bit of deviation from what the developers intended. My question, how do you define a 10, and what makes Red Dead Redemption 2 worthy of a 10 despite its flaws? I mean, not to be a contrarian, but I don't think the controls are awkward. I don't think the tasks are tedious, and I don't think the mission structures are
I loved
problematic.
How
many missions did you fail?
variety.
I hear that from a lot of people. They're like, "Man, I'm failing missions right and left." I'm like, I didn't, and it's not just like, "Ooh, get good." Like I just didn't have that experience, and I think I always define a 10 by I could not have asked the developer to do any more than they did. And when I hit like 60% of that game, I was like, this is a 10. Like before I even got to the jungle, before even you got TB, before I even noticed that, before I have played clearly online, and before I noticed like, oh, New Austin's in there too. It was like, oh my God, you know? So it's just like, they could have done things to change this game to your personal tastes, but as far as what they produced, I just think it's
the mission variety is so important and such a big reason, a big thing for me, especially comparing it to Red Dead 1, where you're shooting so many people. There's, you go to a mission and it's just like, oh, we get attacked. Like that happens a lot in Red Dead 2,
right.
But there's also a lot of room to do non-combat missions, which I appreciate.
Stienholm Nordahl. What was your reaction to... Oh, sorry, Sam. I had to force myself to play a lot of the game. It reminds me of Shenmue in that it simulates real life a lot. You can open every single drawer and find almost nothing of value. It feels like there are too many systems and it bogs down the game and makes it a chore to play. Did any of you feel this too? Under it all, there's an interesting cast and story, but the wall to get over that was high.
I feel like you could just ignore all that if you don't care about it.
Right.
Like there's a point
Then
where
just
I was
don't
like,
look
I just want to keep
get
going.
money another way.
It's like I don't need to check every drawer.
That's,
it's there if you want it.
Yeah, that's how Kyle's playing. Kyle's doing yellow mainline quests only.
Like if
just
it's
to get
there
through.
if you want to look for it. Mm-hmm. But you're not forced to do it.
You can RP and take baths if you want to, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Stienholm Nordahl, what was your reaction when you first entered Saint Denis? I talked about it. Personally, I was awestruck and had to spend the next 2 hours just wandering the streets and absorbing every detail. Thank goodness we've covered that.
First thing I did when I got there is I went to every single shop.
Well, you gotta do
it
that,
up, dude. Oh my God.
What did Carlos Lima? What do you guys think about the bounty hunter system? I found it incredibly frustrating when you're on the way to a mission and it gets suddenly locked out because bounty hunters randomly spawned nearby. Did you ever find it frustrating or did you not mind it? I did not deal with this system a lot.
That didn't happen to me.
I dealt with strangers maybe when I was trying to go to a stranger and I was like wanted or whatever and I couldn't talk to them. But then I just ran away. Then I came back in a minute. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine.
I think there is a lot of places where the systems in this game can kind of step on your toes. I had one that a friend of mine had where I was like, oh yeah, that's brutal. And he's like, don't tell Steve you gave this a 10 because he's like, you will never forget that moment. He spent like an hour and a half hunting a perfect animal to get a perfect skin, got it, put it on his horse, took it back to the camp. And when he got off his horse in camp, somebody's like, let's do a mission. He was like, no, I got it. And then did the mission and came back and it was rotted. And he's like,
wow, that sucks.
Come on. So it's like, okay, like that like kind of like taking over and like, we're going to do a fun thing now. It's like, well, stop for a second. And if you get on your horse,
let me just hand
do
this
really
pelt
quick
here.
Yeah, that sucks.
I appreciated the bounties though, the bounty hunting. Yeah, because, so many times it's like, all right, I'm gonna take everyone alive. Like, let's go. Give me the max reward and let justice prevail here. But there were some times, I think 2 different times, when it was just so chaotic, like I had to put him down.
Yeah.
I
accidentally shot one. I was like, oh man.
Me too. And I just let it ride. There was a guy, you go into a fort and the guy's on like the balcony up there.
Oh yeah.
And the people are coming in and I'm just like, dude. Like, sorry, dude, you're taking you dead.
I accidentally killed that guy because I went to go for the lasso and I just didn't. And I like pulled out the gun and I was in slow-mo and shot him. And it was the first time I shot him and I just shot him like the ribs. So I was like, oh, he might survive this. And he was like, oh. He started to fall at the edge. I was like, no. Like, whatever. Your ACs. Can any of you remember the moment in the game that most deeply moved or affected you? Honestly, probably John going to the Fisher guy. I wept a little bit. That really moved me when he's like, oh yeah, he died. And he's like, I'm sorry to hear that. Like that really got to me.
The date with Mary.
Nice.
Unbelievable.
I think just him getting TB. Really hurt.
it
Like him
really
accepting
hurts,
his death.
dude. It's like the whole dying of disease, man.
I
It's
found the
too close to
conversation
home.
between Arthur and the nun at the train station. I
Oh
don't know
my
if you got
God, that
that
was so good, yeah.
After sending Colonel Monroe on his way, the conversation with Archer describes his deceased son as lost family members and tells her, I guess
know.
I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Straw Hat Ninja, I have no interest in Rockstar Games. Is this the one for me to play to give them a second chance? Absolutely no way I can answer that question, Straw Hat Ninja.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know.
Borrow a free copy if you can. Tyler Manning, how do you guys feel about Dutch at the end? He's constantly saying, one more job, have a little faith, we need more money. So much so that it's become a meme. However, he never contributes and by the end betrays Arthur. So I just want some thoughts on how far Dutch has fallen at the end of Red Dead Redemption 2, and if you think he truly became the guy he was in RDR 1. In my opinion, they pulled it off really well.
Oh yeah, because you see they tease that really well, Jones. The him connecting with the Native Americans at the end, kind of manipulating them and
situation,
rallying
yeah.
the situation, because when you see him in 1, he like scoops them all up and they basically work for him, and he's lost it. He's a psycho in 1, so you knew what was going to happen, and I thought it played it with a nice slow burn and a nice payoff.
Arthur talks about it the entire game, and actually going back and through and playing the beginning, the first mission you go on, when he's talking, I think he's talking with Javier. He's like, "I've never seen Dutch like that." And Blackwater, I've never seen him.
Yeah,
do
that
anything
was
like
the
that.
beginning and the
And so
end.
Blackwater's like the tipping point where he's really starting to lose control.
Yeah.
I was surprised when he's like, "Stay with me." He says that in the trailer. That's in the opening cutscene.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, we're starting from this."
Yeah.
With he feels the need to like do not leave.
Yeah.
It's like wow, like they're buried in this blizzard and like they're gonna leave, but he's like scared that like they're gonna back out on him. So yeah. Mark Lucarelli, what do you think about how the game handled complex issues like racism, slavery, the treatment of Native Americans, and capitalism in general? I really liked the mission with Lenny where Arthur's like, "You must have a tough go of it, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah." Like, and you're in Lenny's position. It's like, I'm not gonna be the one to bring this up, but yeah.
Yep.
You know, and like, he's like, yeah, this guy used to be a Civil War general, so I would be very happy to go and rob this guy or take. I think you do like a home robbery with him, and he's like, I'm going to enjoy this.
Oh man! All the stuff, rains fall, dude. Like
Rains
his
fall.
tribe just falling apart, losing his
But
son.
I like
God.
one of the ways I think it's effective because like I think you could go through these things and be like they could have talked more about slavery. Like the KKK is just kind of comical. Like could have explored this more. But at the same time, I think it could be argued that because they didn't, speaks to how little anyone cared.
Yeah.
You know, like really speaks to like it took these men to be outside of the law to really be like, this is messed up. But it's like if you're living in Saint Denis, like what do you care? Like if you're like taking carriages in between towns, like you're never exposed to any of this. And something I didn't realize until later that I just rode through and was like, oh damn. If you go back to that where the Native Americans are with the
reservation?
reservations. If you go back to that reservation, gone. All the tents gone.
Packs
Everyone
up. Yeah, they pack
gone.
up.
Well, they didn't pack up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
They
well,
were
that's
pushed off that
that's
land.
just what they said. Like, we gotta pack up.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
out of here.
It's like, oh.
When Brad and I were talking about the mission with Charles, the hunters, when Charles gets all
yeah.
pissed
With the
off,
buffalo? Yeah.
dude, yeah, loved that.
Pulls out the shotgun. Boom.
Yeah.
James Rodriguez, do you think the fact that the game is a prequel hurt or helped your enjoyment of the game and story? Helped for sure. Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, I'd played Red Dead 2 and then go back to 1. It's like, no, play 1 for like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely play 1 to do it
Designed for
chronologically
you
and,
to do like that.
I think as much if you like the systems in 2, like imagine how brutal it is going to 1 if you've never played it.
Yeah.
It's just like can't talk to anybody, can't care for your horse,
Yep.
can't like change the color of your, like your saddle or any crazy customization. Your outfits you have to like earn. Like
That's why I want 3 now to be after 1. It's just a nice full circle.
Hush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big Turkey, which hat was your favorite? I'm a Panama man myself. I went deep Panama in the end of the game.
Oh.
When after he got TB, I like grew the mustache out and had the Panama hat. But I mostly stuck to his. The estate boss hat is fun. And there's another one that was
Oh my
good.
God, I
can't
did the one.
remember.
What's it? The Stranger, maybe?
I didn't realize
or-
until way late in the game that you
Crap.
could put the hat back on the horse.
I forget what it's called, but it's just like a black hat, like a normal.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Not a lot of hat
I
retention
wore
here.
his hat like the whole game.
Oh, okay.
It's canon. But then I changed the mask though. Put on
Nice.
the knapsack mask.
Yeah,
dude.
dude.
Freaky.
Freaky.
Boardwalk, the
Those
boardwalk
masks are
mask.
messed
Yeah.
up. People get ready for online. People
Yeah.
with masks
Oh,
all
I'm
over the place.
Wearing one.
Sven Van Latham, did you ever feel like giving up on story missions? I didn't because I had to review
No.
it. So I'd ask you.
Dude.
But no.
Every story mission was
Yeah, I loved it.
amazing.
Andrew Rife, how do you feel
treat.
about the morality of Arthur Morgan? He's willing to kill anyone if it benefits himself, but seemed to completely arbor racism, slavery. Abhor racism, slavery. Sorry. What do you think is? What do you think this is, and what do you think happened in his life to determine right from wrong? I think it's totally up to you.
And it's Dutch too, a lot
determine,
of
yeah.
it. And it's a lot of it is business. Who he kills. You
Yeah.
think of the opening mission, coming up to the homestead. Take those people are doing bad things. You take them out. That guy's running away in the field. Dutch specifically tells you, Arthur, get that guy.
Yeah.
You're following orders a lot of the game.
And he does kind of doubt you. He's like, "Are you questioning me, Arthur?" And he's like, "Never." So
Yeah.
like, well, that's how we start. So I can, possibly move away from him. Travis Cummings asks a long paragraph about TB. I think we kind of talked about that in the end and how that made us feel emotionally. Alexander Schilling, hi allies, love the story in RDR 1 and 2. I was wondering before playing 2 how things will end for Arthur. My first thought was that he was going to die, and while playing I had the hopes that he was going to have a happy ending in another country or something like that. Although I loved the ending and how things turned out, I would love to know your thoughts about this before playing the game, and if you would have changed something from the story in regarding the fate of Arthur. We have talked about that. I think we're cool.
Yeah, I loved. I absolutely loved
More
it.
of a, you were talking about Javier and Bill, and just kind of his relationship with the gang could have been fleshed out better.
It hurts. That's all I gotta say. Give me more Arthur Morgan.
Alex Mallory.
Just a drink, no big drama.
Yeah.
Alex Mallory, I love this game, but at times I felt it was going on for too long. Many side missions and maybe some even the main missions, although filled with funny characters, was just kind of forgettable and didn't add anything to the overall story. And when I reached what I felt like a playtime around 60 hours, I just wanted to see the end of the story. To be honest, I get this feeling every time I play a Rockstar game. Sure, some of the main story missions are great, but I often feel like there's a lot of filler in between, so to speak. Do you ever feel that way about playing the game? I've never felt that way about a Rockstar game. A lot of people have told me that over the years. I'm not right. They're not right.
No,
whatever.
yeah,
It's just
it's
personal
all
taste.
taste and opinion. The filler, if you will, is usually some of my favorite stuff. Setting up a GTA, like the tow truck mission.
Yeah.
Let me go tow some cars. Cool.
I kind of, it's like the grief I felt about that mission just played into my desire to see Franklin leave this life. Yeah. To be like, I want to be in a point where I never have to do this again. And they give you the option anytime you come by and you can do trucks. I'm not going to just randomly go by and do that. And I guess the one time I was like, what? Was when we went to that island. I was like, where are we going, Rockstar? Like, I wasn't like, this is filler, but I was like, I have no predictions whatsoever for this. Ahmad Naki, what's your favorite random non-quest encounters? We talked about that. For example, Mickey, the one-armed guy, or Gavin's friend. I wonder if we ever find. I'm curious about Gavin is.
Yeah.
Online, dude.
Where's Gavin?
Gavin's gonna be on online.
I'm Gavin.
Gavin's the first NPC you meet.
Oh, I hate that guy.
Have you seen my friend? Fish. One of the bigger complaints about the original Red Dead Redemption that I can remember was being forced to play as Jack after the story concluded, even though most people want to continue playing as John. Now in 2, you're forced to play as John. Going to Redemption 2, I would have loved to hear what we would get to play as John. I would have loved to hear that we would get to play as John since he's one of my favorite characters in games. But having played as Arthur for so long, I grew to like him maybe even more than John, meaning that I'm a little disappointed that I can't go back to playing as him. My question is, do you think there's any way for Rockstar to switch playable characters late in the game while keeping players happy?
That right there is a testament to how freaking well realized Arthur Morgan is that John Marston is one of the most iconic, loved video game characters in gaming. They give us what we want. We get to play as him, yet a lot of the sentiment is, I miss Arthur.
Yeah.
I miss Arthur. Like, you're John Marston now. I don't care. I love Arthur. So good.
And now that I felt that, I was like, oh, I love John, but like, nah, I'm John now. And
The disappointment.
but like 20, 30, 40 hours later, it's like, I've really kind of settled in. Like, I wear outfits that look good on him instead of Arthur. And so it's like, I have different horses, different family. Like,
Yeah.
I think you really get into
I love that they do. They
get
have
into
the
that
balls to
role-playing.
kill the character you play as, and you like just play someone different. Yeah, I love that.
Andrew Rife with his second question. How do you feel about the music in the game? What was your favorite track, and why is it Willie Nelson's Cruel, Cruel World? I thought the music was okay. I think it's good. I didn't not like it.
Yeah.
But I remember like finishing it and like writing out the review and being like, should I mention the music? And I was like, I think they clearly realized that moment Far Away worked in the first game, so they put a couple more moments.
Yeah,
from
they
that.
did.
I think it fit really. I'm just waiting. Like, when are they gonna do it? When are they gonna do it? I think it fit at the beginning of chapter 5. We finally get home. And I'm like, okay.
I really
Or at
liked
the end of chapter 5, I guess.
I really like just a lot of the original music, just like during a mission when it swells up.
I like the music.
And as I mentioned, a lot of great in-game music. A lot of people like Javier can play guitar. Like I mentioned at the homestead, if you haven't, like go there at night and go to the back of the house, and sometimes they'll be playing tunes or singing a song. Daniel Warren, with Red Dead 2 over, where do you hope the story goes from here? Next.
Boardwalk Baby, 1920s,
Yep.
New York,
Thank you for the
Chicago.
question. Next, Adam Hobgood. One of the things that stuck me while I was playing this game is that unlike RDR1, which felt more like a Western-themed GTA, which I love by the way, this feels much more like an actual Western in all caps. The languid pace, the novel-like storytelling, and the focus on the hardships of late 19th century American life. I wonder if many of the criticisms of pace come from this. How do you guys feel about the much more less artificial, more novelistic nature of Arthur's world in Red Dead 2 versus John's more spaghetti Western Hollywood-esque world of Red Dead 1? Love it. And like,
Yeah, loved it.
And I think that was one of my first like retorts when people were like, "Oh, the beginning of this game's so slow." I'm like, and I say that very specifically in the review, and I show myself chopping wood. I'm like, this game is slow. Like, just everything in this game is deliberate. But to me, that's it makes me think of Battlefield. Like, I remember when Battlefield 2 came out, and I went over to a helicopter and just popped right in, and I was like, "Oh, it'd be nice if I climbed into it." And like people around me were like, "Shut up, Jones." And I was like, "Yeah, but the animation
Now
would
you
be fun."
do.
You know, and it's like, I don't think Battlefield should do that, but like, I think there is a place for people that like that. You know, it's like a lot of people talk about, we make the joke, you know, and we're making a joke in an upcoming video you're going to see where we talk about like wandering around, like I'm just wobbling into stuff, or like I'm selecting the wrong thing. And like, I don't do that because I very carefully like, pick the stuff that I'm doing. It's a very rare occurrence where like I'll grab somebody and punch them or like do something wrong. Or if it is, I'm just like, oops, my bad. It's not like, oh, that shouldn't be that button. Or I just like, I walk in this game a lot. Like a lot of times, like even in the Trapper is in Saint Denis, and he's in this weird kind of like bazaar area. And there's a lot of Chinese people are in there, and there's a lot of it's just a very busy area, and it's like you could run through there and just elbow everybody, but like I always walk. Like anytime I go through, I'm always like, okay, let me just take my time to get to them. And I love that stuff. To me, that's it just fits into the world.
Yeah.
But if you don't like it, I totally understand. Brad, how do you guys feel that Arthur Morgan's story ended around the 70% mark? I feel as if the prologue dragged and took something away from Arthur's story. I mean, if you think about it in a percentage way, sure, but it's like, even if they had added more to both sides, it would still be around 70%.
That was way cool. I love getting to know John even more.
Yeah.
Like how he came to Situation 1. I love that.
Because I think I would not be surprised, and I will totally give people a pass if they do this, but I could see people like opening the epilogue and being like, I'm done. You know, like this was fun, and I did play Red Dead 1. I don't care about John. I'm done.
Yeah,
you know, and like they'll maybe ask a friend, what happens? And like, oh, you build this house. Like, okay, neat. No regrets. I didn't feel like I missed anything. James Knight, did you guys do the complete down storyline? Yeah, we give them their money and send them on their way. You go to Annisburg, and she's a prostitute.
Oh yeah.
And you help her, and in the credits,
Yeah.
you can see them. They're getting on a ship, and like they're all cleaned up, and she looks a lot better, and they're wearing fancy clothes. And, like, it ends with Arthur giving them hundreds of dollars and really solidifies the redemption arc for me. He doesn't. He gives them like $120 or something. I was like, please.
Yeah.
Oh, when
Take
I
my
did that,
stupid money.
Jones, I had another mission there, and I came back, and she was in that mission, like still being a prostitute. And I was like, wait, what? Yeah, because I still had a mission there. Yeah.
Oops. I want to know, Luke Freer, I want to know how you guys felt when you were riding around and Arthur suddenly collapsed in a coughing fit.
Dude, I was panicking.
Personally, I started crying.
I was panicking.
It's like, Arthur, no!
Yeah.
Take a shot. What's going on?
Yeah. It hurt. It really hurt.
German
I didn't like it.
scientist, though I'm a huge Rockstar fan and 100%ed Red Dead Redemption 1, I have incredibly mixed feelings about RDR 2. Apart from the controls and core system, which I struggled with, got more used to, then ended up struggling with again through the end, I mainly love the story. However, I found the economy a big issue, which ruined the immersion for me. Dutch keeps going on about the money, and everybody agrees. Even towards the end, while they're breaking apart and the gang goes along with Dutch, I presumably thinking if we do get the money, his plan could work. My problem is that even the first bank heist in Valentine, Special Ultimate Edition, earned the gang $10K in savings and $10K and more split among those that helped with the mission. Adjusted for inflation, even just the $10K in the gang's savings translates to $300,000 in 2018. They live in tents and hunt for food, so I don't see where the money would go. Surely that amount of money in 1899 would be enough to pay off some captain to let 20-ish people on his boat to some other country. Also, from completing the game, you have $20,000, and John mentions his debt is already paid off. That's $600,000 with no rent, no cost for food. Why doesn't he do anything with that money? What am I supposed to do with that money? The most expensive thing I've seen in the game costs like $200. What's your take on the economy? It's slow in the beginning, and I definitely got to a point where I was like, I don't need, there are things I could buy I don't need to buy.
Yes.
Even at the end game now, I'm like, I don't need to buy
As
that.
soon as you pull like one of the first couple jobs, you get a sizable payday.
Right.
So I thought the economy worked, and it's typical of GTA and Red Dead. It's like GTA 5, you're broke until you pull that jewelry job. So I assumed I was going to be broke until I pulled a heist, and it took a while to get to that point.
It felt like to me Dutch just like not wanting to abandon this way of life.
Exactly. He's got the money, he doesn't even care. He just wants to keep control. Keep
There's
it
also
as
that.
is.
Yeah. That like every time you
Yep.
see that camp cut, it's like, oh, and it's like that's kind of part of it. That like, screw this camp. I'm gonna go on my own. It's like, well, that's a decision, I guess, and you can do that if you want. Just don't do any more story missions. You're done. And you're like, well, I want to see what happens to him. It's like I kind of like that struggle, and I was wondering the whole time where I was like, because it's like, oh, the camp gets this, and I thought that was put in the pot. That like we could spend upgrades using that money, and I'll go back and be like, where the hell is that money? And he's like, oh, Dutch keeps it outside of town, and it's like, oh no, like that something's gonna happen there, like.
Yeah. Because I mean, even at the end, when
so I
you
like
go
that there was a
see him,
build-up
and he's
there
got
emotionally.
his chest full of cash, and he just walks away. When you go take out Micah,
Yeah.
he doesn't even care about the
It's
money.
not about the money.
It's
I don't
not about
think.
the money.
Jury Kilder, maybe I missed out, but I was really suspecting a post-game quest storyline, seeing how much of the map had no story pieces, yet it feels like there could be, especially in the RDR1 area. Do you think Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to have single-player DLC, contrary to GTA 5? No. Or is that maybe reserved for another online story? Love and respect.
Probably online.
Yeah, I think the online story is going to be even more like they danced around with it in GTA 5. They did it, you do missions for Lester. They started tying it in more. I really think Red Dead Redemption 2 is really
yeah, they'll
gonna,
embrace it way more.
yeah,
probably.
more story focus.
And I wasn't really expecting a lot in New Austin. I don't know if that's specifically what you're referencing. And I kind of did like that they're like not really main story missions, but like Easter eggs. You got to dig for those. And I liked that. Amir Hosni, do you guys think the game, with its huge world and endless quests, was able to deliver on how intimate the game was meant to be, as designed and advertised? Or do you feel disconnected from it all? And if so, do you think the slow pace and the limited number of quests at a given time help with that? Yeah, I definitely felt intimacy here.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, totally.
I just as much as you can really see a careful care put into these environments, especially in like when you find some log cabin in the middle of nowhere that's got some crazy story going on there. Yeah. Jojo Denko, what kind of life would you see Arthur choosing if he had a chance to redo it all?
Oh man, did he talk about anything like
I mean,
that?
he'd kill Micah right away.
Yeah,
would,
of
would
course.
definitely just
They
tell
had to
Dutch,
kill
like,
Micah,
sorry.
yeah.
Like, he would probably just kill Micah, and Dutch would be angry, and he'd be like, you can be angry at me, but I just did not like him. Sorry. He'd probably stick around with Mary. He might just bail on the whole life.
Yeah, there was love there for sure.
Qzu14, with RDR being the most divisive of the big games this year, do you think long, slow games are a hindrance more than a benefit, since Spider-Man and God of War are both around the 20-hour mark? Red Dead takes a good 10 to 15 hours for the story to pick up, and around the same time to learn the controls. I love Red Dead, but I can't argue with people who say it's slow or has clunky controls. I don't think they're wrong. I think it does bristle me up a little bit. Because, like, Overwatch isn't for me. I understand Overwatch. I could probably get good at Smash is not for me. Like, I think the controls in Smash are a little bit counterintuitive and are difficult to learn. I still think I could learn them and get better at Smash. But I'm not going to waltz into a room of Smash fans and be like, pfft. And, like, a lot of people are doing that with Red Dead. They're just like, I don't like the controls. They're bad. And it's like, all right. Like, maybe you just prefer other games that are quicker. It's like people don't like the slow pace. It's like, yeah, you're probably coming from Call of Duty, Battlefield, Overwatch. You're probably coming from these games that you just move through the environment really quickly, or even like a Max Payne, where like you're not expected to spend that much time. But I just think like the first time you like pick up a bottle and you actually do that, it's like, there you go. Like that's the different. Like that's what this game offers. And the trade-off is that it can get a little clunky.
Yeah, I think like the idea of 10 to 15 hours to
gonna run
learn
as
to play
fast.
this game is a little absurd to me. Like
Ooh,
that seems
shots fired.
Yeah, that seems a little out there. Like,
But I mean, there's a lot of. I mean,
there's a lot you could do in this game, but
you
like
think about like
I'm
getting
in
the
control.
lasso and getting like gameplay elements that like I
you
mentioned
do
with the
it-
fishing rod.
yeah.
You don't get that until you fish with.
Yeah, but it's like it's not even complicated. It's not.
Right.
It's not more complicated than any other fishing game. You hold L2, you push R2, and you reel it in.
Right.
Like it's pretty intuitive, like the fishing of what you expect it to be.
Yeah.
Like the biggest thing I see is people complaining about holding L2. It's like, that might be a little confusing, but like none of the
and
controls
just
feel
doing
like
something I don't want to do.
Yeah, like
or
just like just learning the controls like that long just doesn't sit right with me.
But like one thing I totally missed was that if you're targeting an animal, you can whistle and they'll turn their head.
Yeah.
And they say that right away. They
Yeah.
say that when you're on the mission with Charles and
they-
you're getting stuff. Just missed it. And I didn't catch that until way later. I was doing a challenge and they were like, call an animal and headshot it. And I was like, call it?
Yeah.
And then saw that and was like, oh, I didn't know that. And I'm like, that's on me. That's on me for not knowing that and missing that. And the button's right there when you're aiming at an animal. And I just didn't get what that was. And so a lot of times I chalk that up to like, okay, cool, I can learn stuff about this, and not necessarily
Yeah.
like Rockstar should have written me an expressed letter telling me
Right.
that was in the game.
I don't think. Sorry, I don't think the controls are like 100% great, but I think you can adapt to them pretty decent.
I just feel like I have.
We,
Yeah,
we always dunk on Witcher 3 controls for
Right.
being kind of stiff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
It's just something that I put up with in service of a game that
Correct. Like this
outweighs
doesn't,
that.
I'm not playing Super Mario Odyssey where I feel
Yeah.
like super fluid and in control and stuff like that. But yeah, I get like the other parts, the other satisfying parts in other areas of the game. I don't.
Exactly.
I think I would be way more critical if they had added something to the game that I could not see its benefits. It's like I'm not going to argue with you that it's tricky and it's hard
Sure.
and it's clumsy sometimes, but like when I play it and I see the benefit of doing it, then it's like I just
And
when I brush my horse and like see the dirt
Yeah.
like, come off of it, like
Well, it's because they give you so many options. Like with interact with someone, you can hold them up, antagonize, greet them, or some like just like a ton of stuff like that.
I
like you
can,
say, I can't argue with people who say it's slow or has clunky controls. Like, yeah, if it's but I just think that's if you have played it with a friend and you've tried it and you're like, this is weird, like don't play it. Like it's just not it's not,
yeah.
going to get to a point where you're all of a sudden in love with it. Adam Penny asks an essential question: have you seen Gavin?
no.
no.
No. All right. Minish71, do you guys feel that the feel of the game really changes once the prologue starts? Even walking around, maybe the epilogue? Even walking around Saint Denis felt different to me. Any similar thoughts, feelings from the panel? What are your thoughts on that sudden change? If so, personally, I'm still working through adapting. I guess it felt similar in Red Dead Redemption 1, but it's been so long for me, I forget. He says prologue, I'm guessing he means epilogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, totally different vibes. Felt gross seeing because like when I went in to like change my clothes, it defaulted to like Arthur's first outfit.
You're like, no.
And I was like, no. Like Arthur's hat's just on his horse, and I'm like, he can't wear Arthur's hat. That's messed up. And so that
I thought it was like a tribute.
He's a lot skinnier than
He gives him
Morgan,
the hat.
and so it felt like he's wearing like big
Yeah.
boy clothes.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely wearing like very different clothes. Like I said, I've used different weapons, like I don't take baths with the ladies now. Like there's a couple decisions I'm like, well, no, John wouldn't do this. Hold
I'm a
on.
married man.
And just the idea of like, I think where my headspace is at when I go back to quote unquote camp, which is now like your homestead. Like when I would go back to camp before, it'd be like, okay, I have a lot of stuff I need to do now. Whereas like it's pure rest in that epilogue. We're just like, oh, I'm home. Like I can just have a meal with the fam or like kick back with them. Can't take a bath. You have a bathtub in the middle of the room. Can't take a bath.
Can't
I
take
don't
a
know
bath.
why. Online.
Everything.
But one thing I want to point out that I thought was really impressive going back and playing the original now is the weather changes. So, and I don't know if this switches in chapter 2 or 3 or maybe in the epilogue, but when you first ride down past Valentine, it's snowing like in Valentine, like right outside of Valentine. And like I'm in that area in post game, and like there's no snow at all. It's only snow up in the top part. So like the weather actually is like a snowy part. I wonder if they'll do that shit in online because when Christmas comes around every year in GTA Online, it snows on that island.
Definitely.
So it'd be cool if seasons change in online.
Yep.
Halloween next year, dude.
Tony Knox, haven't beaten it yet, but I just wanted to comment.
Seth. That was the name.
Seth, there you go, nailed it. The grave robber from the first game that we thought was in this one. Which Owen DJ was there one thing you expected Rockstar to do based off experiences from Red Dead 1 and didn't that. Tony Knox, haven't beaten it yet, but I just want to comment that this is a fantastic addition to spoiler mode. Can't promise that we're gonna do this in the future. This is just me. I wanted to test this out. Cup of Jones comes up a lot where people want questions. This has definitely added a solid hour plus to this spoiler mode.
We did
but
this for Castlevania too.
cool. And I just think
Right,
with
we
this
don't know if
game,
we'll do
there's
it
just
every
a
time.
lot of weird
this is
stuff that happens, and so I think it fits. Where something like Life is Strange, I don't know if you want to take questions.
This is a monumental moment
Yeah, this is like the
in video
massive,
games.
most massive.
Ebo Show, aka Ibrahim Sozer, not taking the gloves off. Game had too much filler in the story. It was too long for no reason.
Oh, I disagree.
Same.
I
Completely
can't
disagree.
think I did a mission in that game that I thought was unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing I finished that was like,
It's-
but like to each his own.
For me, it's always about the journey, not the end. And I think we're bombarded with so much media now that we want to just move on to the next
Right.
and end something to get to something
Right.
else. And
also-
it's about the journey.
I also think I wasn't surprised at how much story was in there because you have this huge gang with so many characters. And I love people that are even on the side, like Molly, who there's a major Molly moment in that story, but like you could never talk to her. Like you could even forget she's there. She spends a lot of the time just in Dutch's camp. Don't really establish what their relationship is. I get they're dating, but like they're not married, and like
Mistress.
Dutch doesn't really talk about her a lot, and so it's like, okay, like Mary Beth, don't get a lot of time with. There's one story mission you start with her, and then
dude,
the
like
gal
sitting
comes in, like,
down and confessing.
Yeah, talking to them.
so I think like
camp.
I think they encouraged you to talk to these people in camp, to do these side missions, to do like the home invasions and these little like hunting side missions and stuff. But like you don't have to talk to them. But I think Rockstar at least wanted you to like be introduced to each person once. It's like at least just do this one mission with Sadie, and then you can ignore her if you want. But at least just so you know like the relationship she has with John, like how Arthur values her, the arc that she's taken in the story. But
just love
those hot
that
takes,
stuff.
Ebo, I appreciate them. Christopher Moreland, how do you feel about the political correctness that was present in the game? I found it a little jarring how some of the missions had dialogue that handled women's rights, mental disabilities, and racism. I understand that in our modern time, it's easy to look at how backward people used to be. I feel as though Rockstar went out of their way many times to prove just how progressive Arthur was, and it never felt natural to me. I don't think they leaned on it too much. I mean, there is the suffrage.
Gets political.
There's the suffrage mission. I think it always kind of had a jovial tone to it. With this, I don't want to get too far into details with this. I would love examples. I would love literally the dialogue to be written in front of me to really be like, what did he mean by that? One thing that really stood out to me, though, that I did appreciate was, and I mentioned this briefly, but I love that Arthur tells Lenny, he's like, well, you got a tough go of it, don't you? And Lenny's like, yeah, I don't really bring it up that much because what are you going to do? But I did like that Arthur is in the unique position where he's like, I don't owe anything to anybody. Like, I do have this luxury. I don't have a boss. I don't have a family. I don't have a lot of things that could get me hung up on a particular. We're seeing that in today's society, where like where you grow up affects a lot of what your political ideals are. And I think Arthur has experienced so much of his life on the outside looking in to regular society and how you should act, that it kind of did make sense for me that he is reevaluating a lot of these things, or just kind of approaches something like, okay, like you see how he is sympathetic toward the Native Americans, but he's not donating money to them. He's not, when they move on later, he doesn't care try to find them, you know? So like, he kind of wants to stop Dutch.
And a lot of
but
it's for Charles.
He's trying to stop Dutch, not because he's like, this is what's going to help these people. He's like, let's just not get involved in this. Why are we even here? You know? And so I think he just wants to get away from all of it. And I think that's like the life that he wants to live.
And that's kind of the whole point of the gang, is that it's a lot of outcasts.
That it's freedom, that you don't have to deal with these things.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I could see that, I don't view it as so much progressive. I think they want to view him as a blank slate, so that he's not going to kind of take one stance or another. Like, you can apply your own ideals to this, to that character. But I'd be curious. To actually go through specific scenes and talk about that. Ken J. Fuse, what part of the game made you the most emotional, if at all? We have answered that.
Yep.
Gabrielle Kamara, hello, fellow allies. I really love to watch the interaction between each character inside Dutch's gang. As a matter of fact, so much that I've decided to make my question about them and, of course, my other favorite group, the Jones Alliance. Oh, what?
What?
The Jones Alliance.
Okay.
I guess us. Haha, you're in my alliance. I'm the Dutch of this. We need more money.
I think Jones is losing it.
Go to patreon.com. We need more money.
One last donation.
Boys, I promise you, we're going to get a studio someday. It's going to happen. We're going to go on a boat. We're going to be in a studio, and it's going to be a dream you never thought you could realize.
I don't know, Jones. I don't know.
I need more time.
When's it going to end, Jones?
So funny.
When we reach the
Oh
goal.
my god.
That's a good bit.
Great bit.
All right. With the 9 allies in the group, which one fits each archetype the best? I don't know if we'll label all of these. Choose between Dutch, Hosea, Arthur. Obviously, I'm Dutch. That's funny. Who's Arthur? Who's the Arthur of the group? Micah, Charles. Micah's clearly Bossman.
Bossman's my
Yeah.
Bill is, what, Damiani?
No.
I could see a little Damiani in Bill.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just the stubbornness, you know?
Sure.
No, it's tough. We're
It's
not
tough.
really like any of them.
You kind of got a little Seanness in you, the enthusiasm.
Sure.
He's very outspoken.
Yeah.
He's very energetic. He wants to be involved in stuff. I was like,
Yeah.
Let's go.
Ian Sadie, obviously. Combo Breaker. I felt the game almost required you to get lost in it and is best enjoyed at a very slow pace. That is almost verbatim the last line of my review. This doesn't exactly fit well with such an instant gratification society. While some of the complaints about the game are valid, and I feel some people might have mistaken the game for another Uncharted or Spider-Man type experience, those games are wonderful, and there are plenty of them, but I for one am glad that this game is so different, flaws and all. Do you think this game is best enjoyed at a much slower pace? Yes, we've all agreed with that many times. And is this the reason for some of the complaints people have? Who, like Kyle, while might be stuck with mostly in the story missions and missed out on much of the depth the game has to offer. Having played through the game quite quickly yourselves for obvious reasons, do you think burning through it makes sense, makes it much more of a chore because it wasn't intended to be played that way? Not that this addresses all the complaints about the game. I don't know. I can't replay it. You know, I can't have that session. I played it super fast. I beat this game in 6 days. Did you feel rushed, either of you, for this spoiler mode we're doing today?
I
Like-
took weeks to beat it.
Yeah, when
That's long for us.
when a monumental game like this comes out, I devote my entire life to it and just soak it in. I don't rush it, but I play for 10 hours a day. 15 hours a day, staying up till 7 a.m. every
But
night.
it's
I was,
you
I
know,
was
but there's
proud of
no
you.
rush.
Every time you would show up to a shoot, and
Yeah.
you'd be like, I'm like really tired. I'm like, you okay? You're like, I went to bed at 5 a.m.
Red
Dead.
Dead.
I was like,
Red Dead.
I'm proud of you, boy.
Yeah.
Curtis McCaffrey, based on where the characters are left off at the end of the game, which hypothetical expansion would get you the most excited? Sadie Adler,
Charles.
Bounty Hunter, or Charles Smith, Adventures in
Yeah.
Canada?
Charles.
All right.
Charles would be sick.
I would love some more Sadie.
And Sadie for sure.
Finally, Kai
love
Alexander Pennant, also known as Cap. Question: what is your favorite mission? Mine is the one in Rhodes when the gang is set off to rescue Jack from the Braithwaites. The way the music swells, the music I used in the beginning of the review, in the background as you all approach the mansion is fucking ridiculous. We talked about our favorite mission, so we did expound
We
on
didn't
that.
mention, I love the final mission, though. When you go up the mountain, actually, with Charles and Sadie.
Do you know what that mission's called, Brad?
Final mission.
Red Dead Redemption.
Oh,
Dead
yeah, that's
Redemption.
the trophy that pops up. I forgot about that. Oh, no, that's when Arthur dies. Just kidding.
And some of you might be like, wait, no, I asked the question after Kai. I grabbed these questions right when we started the Q&A. We've talked about it for an hour. I'm sure there's more questions after that. This is a 3-hour...
This is massive.
It's a 3-hour spoiler mode. We're going to have to wrap it up. Thank
When are
you
we
so
doing
much
the
for your questions.
online spoiler mode?
If you... I mean, every week, baby. Every week. I'll see you online. If there is something that you're dying, if you're like, no, I put in a question there. I did throw this to everybody. Obviously, if you're watching the spoiler mode, this is only for patrons. If there is something that you asked or you know somebody has an opinion, ask it on Cup of Jones. I'm more than happy to ask it in the personal question of the next episode of Cup of Jones, which will not be next Thursday because it is Thanksgiving. But we're happy. And of course, you can ask us on streams and stuff like that. I will talk about this game for days, weeks, years even. And of course, online is coming. We'll see what DLC they add and what more stuff we can do in this game. But there we go. That is the spoiler mode for Red Dead Redemption. I want to thank you so much for finishing this game because I cannot tell you the craziness, the stir. I was just shaking because there were so many things I wanted to talk about, specifically just New Austin and being in there.
Jones,
and
that's
this whole
how-
added section
Never
of the map. And
Jones, I'm proud of you. You did good, too, with holding it together.
Yeah.
That's like a tough task. Like, knowing what I know now, I'd just be like, staring at Mike all the time, I'd be like, Mike,
get there.
cracking the safe. I'd say something like that to Mike.
dude. Love the fingers.
And another thing too, why I'm always welcoming comments is like I'm 100 and whatever hours into this game. I'm sure I've missed a ton of stuff.
Yeah,
there were
so
even some
much.
side missions. I was like, yeah, that one with the kid that was missing. What? You know,
Dude, I
and
assume,
Easter eggs and
I assume
yeah.
we won't discover everything for years.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
GTA 5 Easter eggs popping up years later.
Wait for that game sleuth from
Yeah.
Damiani.
keep the comments coming. And of course, if you're watching this video, that means you are a patron of Easy Allies, and we were so unbelievably grateful to you to watching this all crazy video, hanging on with us for this crazy ride. We will get a studio. It will happen. And there will be more spoiler modes possibly this month, but guaranteed you will get one next month. See you on down the trail.
I think we have an understanding.
Of course we do. Jimmy Brooks. I will remember that. I've got a good memory.